ultimately, what the root of the disagreement comes down to is the question of justifying these Bayes axioms, because I've said this since the very outset. This was on my post 2 months ago. Is that the issue with Ask Yourself's position and Avi's position is that it's completely vacuous. And going into any conversation whatsoever, I can assume some higher level axiom that allows me to disagree with them at every single point, and we can never approach a neutral ground under which we can determine which one is more valid. And if I can just read this quote by Boghossian, I think this very much
Paul or
just
Peter?
gets at the heart of it. Pardon?
Paul or Peter Boghossian?
Which one do you think?
Not the goofball atheist.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Peter. No, Paul.
Paul's the non-goofball.
Silver professor from NYU.
Yeah.
Okay, this is him.
Is this from his book on realism, by the way?
No, this is from New Essays on the A Priori, which he has a paper. Okay. I accept a particular set of fundamental norms. He accepts another. By assumption, the norms in dispute are fundamental, so there is no neutral territory on which the disagreement can be adjudicated. Furthermore, on the non-factualist view, there are no facts about which fundamental epistemic norms are correct and which ones are not. So on what basis do I insist that he give up his norms in favor of mine? The expressivist thinks he can evade the clutches of a self-undermining relativism by claiming that talk about a belief's being justified expresses a state of mind rather than stating anything. But this stratagem does not long conceal the view's inevitable relativistic upshot, which can now be restated in terms of the problem of normative authority. If no evidential system is more correct than any other, then I cannot coherently think that a particular belief is unjustified, no matter how crazy it may be, so long as that belief is grounded in a set of fundamental epistemic norms that permit it, no matter how crazy they may be.
Mm-hmm.
And that describes exactly Avi's and Ask Yourself's view. Do you agree?
Do I agree that it describes their view?
Yeah, perfectly. That they accept that conclusion.
I don't know whether or not they accept the conclusion.
They say that we just assume all of our axioms.
Can I give an assertion? Or go ahead.
Well, so what I don't want to do is I don't want to have to defend a lot of. I mean, you guys have been talking for a long time, and I haven't been privy to it. So let me walk back to some things that I think that I hold, and you guys can tell me if you have any disagreements with that. And then if you guys want to ask me questions about what I think about their view, we can, but I'm probably not going to do any better than they are.
All here is Ask Yourselves and Avi's view. That's all I'm taking issue here with. And I think that's all I think that's really you might have some very coherent, awesome position. That's fine. But what I'm here taking disagreement with, and I've been repeatedly taking disagreement with, is this vacuous, nihilistic, non-factualist assertion about the way in which we structure our set of epistemic beliefs. And Avi and Ask Yourself repeatedly say that we just do it by assuming things and going on with our lives.
Yeah, so if I can give like two examples here that are related to this. So for instance, in my conversation earlier with Avi, one of my big problems with their system is how do you map utility onto deontological obligations? And he said, well, I just do it with my intuition. And it's like, okay, that seems weird. Or like another thing he brought up is I said, why not just be a rule utilitarian? It seems like it encompasses almost everything here. And he said, well, I want to be able to have good morals in a vacuum or something. And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Why? And he's like, well, I just assert that as axiom. And it's like, okay.
Do you think that? So what I was pointing out, or I tried to point out, is that whatever you think of their view, it definitely is not a kind of utilitarian view. And the reason is...
Well, yeah, I do. So I want to hear this. Go ahead.
Okay.
And the reason is that utilitarianism isn't about whether or not you can or do assign units of utility, for example, to a moral judgment. It's about what makes a moral judgment true or false. And what makes a moral judgment true or false for utilitarianism is whether on the whole it increases the amount of utility, right? That's all there is to be a utilitarian.
Sure, but it
And I was
sounds like
simply noting on.
when you take
Go
a
ahead.
deontological obligation and then you assign it some value of utility, and you're making a choice between things, and you go with the things that has the highest amount of utility that you've assigned it. I just don't.
You don't do that though,
How not?
because on their view, you can say telling the truth is obligatory, even though it incurs negative 50 units of utility.
But that's
And
only
you
because
know,
they've assigned some arbitrary value of utility to telling the truth. That's my whole issue with their system.
no, they don't though.
Then how do they, can you tell me how they make these two things commensurable? How do they compare deontological obligations with utilitarian ones?
Well, this is gonna be offensive. Are you streaming?
Yeah, why?
All right. So, so let's pretend that all girls have a weight,
Okay.
and
But why do we have to use this example?
Wait, no, just
And-
let him go. Okay, go.
and you're attracted to any girl with certain features, as long as they're under a certain weight. I'm not going to give a weight, actually. Let's call it 500 pounds. Now, every girl still has a weight, but it doesn't factor in to your assessment of whether or not you like them. But at some point, the scales tip, as it were, pardon the pun, so much so that it overrides the other values that you find attractive, right? So just because something has utility does not mean that you're a utilitarian. So deontological judgments can have a value, a utility, but that doesn't in and of itself make it utilitarian unless it is the the units of utility that make the judgment true or false, right or wrong.
How can you possibly, don't you have to appeal to some third system to weigh these against one another? Like, that's what I'm not understanding.
Well, let's say that's true. Do you at least understand this point though?
I
That
agree if you have some third way to weigh things. So, for instance, like I have because what you're hinting at is some value X that is how much I like a person. That value X can be informed by the girl's weight, but that's not the only variable, right?
So in the case that I gave, liking a girl, that's going to be synonymous in this case with goodness or moral obligation.
Sure.
So you're saying, how do we know what a moral obligation is, given that the only two things we've talked about so far are deontology and utility?
Yeah. So, for instance, like let's say murdering someone. Let's say that we have an obligation not to kill, but let's say that we can, by killing somebody, we can plant 400 trees. In their system, how do they possibly graph that deontological obligation? How do they graph that onto a utility chart and then figure out which one is preferable?
So on that one, so this is, from what I understand, somebody warned you about an epistemic question. But do you understand how this might just be an issue of vagueness?
No, I don't agree at all that it's an issue of vagueness. Because what I'm asking, I'm not saying like one person into 1,000, because even a utilitarian would potentially run into trouble depending on what you're talking about here. What I'm saying is like, how are these comparable at all? Like, how do you even begin to compare these if one you see as an obligation to the act itself and the other is looking at an outcome of an act?
Well, so all acts just would have a unit of utility, some amount of units of utility.
Sure.
On their view, correct?
Well,
across the board.
A deontologist wouldn't say so, though, no? Or would they?
Well, they would.
Doesn't a deontologist just ascribe a binary right or wrong to an act?
Well, no. Even deontologists think that reasons can have weights, and that you can. So, let's take an example. So, here's a way to be a more moderate version of a deontologist. So, a lot of times, what people have in mind by a deontologist is something like a Kantian, but most deontologists are not Kantians, right?
Sure.
As in they have like an absolute value, like you can just never lie for really obvious reasons.
Yeah, because you run into a lot of really dumb pitfalls. Yeah.
so what a lot of people say is that all acts have a given weight, one way or the other. Lying always carries with it a negative weight, but it's trumpable. It's trumpable because there can be things that are worse. And in their scale, allowing someone to die or be murdered is always worse than lying, right? So the Nazis knocking at the door example.
Sure, but when you're talking about worse here, aren't you speaking in terms of your obligations to other things? You're never speaking in terms of like an output to society, right?
An output to society.
So,
you
like,
can just look. I mean, it just seems. I can just say intuitively, murder is worse than lying. Right?
Okay.
They have that relationship.
Sure.
I have a duty to never lie unless it's the case of murder. Right? That's a deontological view. There's nothing really wrong with that. In fact, that's the view of like 99% of deontologists, right?
Yeah, because doing the former is, or some very strict version leads you down a lot of bad paths.
Right. So these already have weight, right? And in fact, the literature, people talk about this kind of thing all the time. Some people even talk about moral judgments in terms of reasons, right? Now, you might not know some of these names, but Rem's probably familiar with like Parfit and Scanlon and Thomas Nagel. These are all moral realists, and they all think that, and they all are types of deontologists, right?
Sure.
Like they're interesting sorts of deontologists. But what they think is the case is the fact that I'm lying to someone is all the fact that saying something to somebody and it's a lie is always a reason to not do it. But it might not be what they call in all things considered reason not to do it.
Gotcha.
So
I
can be a duty based, and so I'm just I don't see this on their view, but this would be like a simple amendment, and I think it's a reasonable one because nearly every deontologist is going to accept something like that.
Sure. Can I drag in a guy that's more familiar with Kant just in case he has a question or whatever?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. All right.
I thought you were gonna bring. Oh yeah.
Fuck. Am I not able to add people to this?
What is he on your Discord?
Yeah, hold on.
What's his name?
It's Magnam, Magnam.
Magnamarium?
Yeah.
Magnamarium. I can add him. It has to accept my friend request.
So wait.
I guess like my main confusion is trying to compare. I guess it just felt like to me that the deontological obligations, even if you can express these in levels of obligations, are incomparable to, I guess, the way a utilitarian would view actions for society. That even if they can measure these with a sliding scale, the scales would be inconsumable to one another.
Yeah. Well, so I ran this by them earlier, by Avi and Ask Yourself. I'm just going to post something in the chat.
Sure.
So I asked them if this is like a decent portrayal of, because up until like very recently, I wasn't that familiar with the graph, and I don't have a dog in this race.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
To me though, and I'm not a moral realist, right? At all.
Okay.
But I understand the interest in trying to find a way
to marry the good parts of utilitarianism and deontology, right? And to get rid of the bad baggage.
Correct.
Sure.
And so if you just read what I put in chat and we just totally forget about the graph for a moment.
Yeah.
Even though they say this is a representation of what they say in the graph, do you find this to be immensely confusing?
No, but this is what I would say. To me, this looks like real utilitarianism to me, where basically you care about the outputs to society, but we also look at other types of outputs as well. So like an example of this is some act X, and we'll say that is not murdering a person is obligatory unless it crosses some utilitarian threshold, such as, say, saving 1,000 people. So like maybe a real utilitarian would say, we can't murder one person to save 5 people for obvious reasons, because in society, nobody would go to the hospital, for instance, right? But if this number reaches some somewhat arbitrary threshold, if we could murder one person to save 100 million people, we would obviously make that decision. That's why it just seemed like real utilitarianism, because you're basically trying to find a way to take that deontological obligation and quantify that in some sort of utility that we can understand and output to society. That's what it felt like to me.
Right. And if I could chime in here for a second.
Sure.
Hi, by the way,
Hello.
I'm new. It's nice to speak to everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I
Hello.
wanted to ask a question of, I think JHC was the one that was saying that under deontology, most reasonable deontologists would accept that you can weigh different actions. I think broadly speaking, I would agree with that, though it seems like that's a distinct issue from deontology recognizing utility in actions, which is what that was seemingly responding to. So I wanted to get clarification on that.
Yeah, so I don't really have anything super interesting to add on that. I mean, what I take it is that most modern Kantians don't speak in terms of duties in the way Kant did. And this is going to be kind of a historical point maybe, which isn't going to be interesting, but we can take people like Parfit, right? Who,
Sure,
instead of talking about moral duties per se, they talk about things that we always have reasons to do and things we never have reasons to do, or things we
Right,
always
but they
have reasons to avoid.
yeah, but they don't usually appeal to utility in order to justify those things, do they? At least not to my
Well,
recollection.
Parfit famously has 3, right? And I know I'm just picking an example, but I'm picking a famous example. Like Parfit's a very important philosopher in recent history.
Sure.
But he thinks that we need bits. He says it has to be consequentialist, has to be Kantian, and it has to be contractarian. And you have to have all 3 to have a sustainable moral system that isn't going to be subject to these kinds of ridiculous counterexamples.
What was the first one? Kantian, contractarian, and what?
And consequentialism.
Okay.
And this is in his very
On
recent
What Matters, right?
3-volume On What Matters. Yeah, it's called the tripartite theory.
Aren't you, when you have this type of, I don't know if you would call this value pluralism, aren't you appealing ultimately to some sort of higher super system to make a decision between one or the other? Like, how are you ever choosing between which system you're going to apply at any point in time?
Well, the interesting question here, which is what in the end of my email, when I said, I hope I haven't misrepresented your criticism, blah, 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 I'll kiss some ass, but I hope you can move along from this quibble to kind of a larger conversation. There are interesting questions about why is there a particular so you could say, is there kind of like a stance that you have to take outside of this system to judge where you drop the pin? And I think there are going to be different interpretations of that. You can say, I can cash out their entire system in terms of subjectivist ethic, where I drop the pin, where the threshold is going to cross, is just going to come down to some facts about my psychology, maybe my preferences and desires.
Gotcha.
Maybe you think that it's going to, you drop the pin, you're forced to drop the pin by the deliverances of the nature of rationality. So Derek Parfit famously thought that reason itself just dictated that there are some things that no rational person could possibly and reasonably want for themselves, like my own future unending suffering and agony. So he took that to be, that has nothing to do. We don't need to reference your subjective desires, opinions, anything like that.
Sure.
So I think this view, what I'll just continue calling the pin dropping objection, you might be able to give the same kind of response that some of these objectivists do, where they come from the deliverances of reason, or it just gets dropped based on some fact about my psychology, and it can be totally subjectivist.
In that case, doesn't the whole system become just vacuous? Like, why would you go through the trouble?
What do you mean by
when I say vacuous, I mean at the end of the day. So when I tried to press Avi on this, he was giving me a similar answer where he said, "Well, it's just my intuition." So if that's true, that you're going to evaluate the goodness or badness of an action based on your intuition, why do all the silly graphing of the deontology and speak and obligate? Like, why not just say at the end of the day, appeal to your intuition and that's it? Why make like a complicated graph?
Well, a couple things. For one, the graph, whatever it says, might not be prescriptive, but it might be descriptive. So they might just literally be charting out like, look, we know in some cases intuition tells us, yeah, we should kill the guy in the waiting room and distribute his organs among all the dying people in the hospital. And there are other times where, you know what, this could be a little white lie and it might come out better for me, but you know what, lying is just wrong and I'm not going to do it. And so it might just be a descriptive project, not prescriptive. They might just literally be doing science.
Yeah, it just
right?
feels really weird there to describe, like, when you say like lying might produce a better outcome, but I'm not going to do it. Like, how you would even begin to weigh those things. I don't know. It just feels like really weird to me.
Like, building on that point, like, because like I said, I think the graph is really just because if you press Avi and you ask yourself and you ask them to justify the graph or whatever, you always will just come back to what I said before, which is that they posit this axiomatic system, which again, that is the main issue here. And I'd even push you here because you say that you're a moral anti-realist. How in the hell do you respond to the companions and guilt argument? What do you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if this really matters for the.
How does it not matter? Because all of the justifications they give hinge on this very question. Because they get into this, oh, well, I just assume that intuition, oh, well, that's my axiom. That's what they do. If you listen to Avi and Destiny's conversation at the very end, you could see how Destiny was getting so frustrated because Avi was just saying, well, look, if you don't accept my axioms, man, then, you know, there you go. But I think we do accept certain axioms. And he wasn't getting the point that he was having this non-factualist view about the axioms of, you know, basic logic and, you know, the axiom of contradiction. So
yeah, I don't really have a lot to comment on that, but let me say a couple things.
But if you're
let him comment.
So I think intuitionist ethical systems are everywhere in the literature. So maybe you just have a problem with intuitionism, which is okay. But if that's what you're saddling them with answering, I mean, I think they're going to be okay. Just hitching their wagon up to the rest of the people in the literature. So the companions and guilt argument is typically an argument given for moral realism, or at least insinuates, if I have it correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, insinuates that if you get rid of moral norms, you just take down norms altogether, right? You take down, say, epistemic norms.
Yep.
And
do you have a disagreement with that?
And I'm okay with that.
So okay, so you would be an epistemic anti-realist, and this is
correct.
And you know that, like, in the literature, this is like one of the most niche positions there are. There are very few that defend this view.
Yeah. So
and I'd be interested in how you justify that.
Well,
can
you? Maybe we can talk about that another time.
That seems like a separate. Well, we can let him.
No,
finish.
It's not. It's not at all. Because look, what it comes down to is that Avi here saying, "Oh, I do what I kind of feel is right, and I feel like these two things are gonna lead to a better sort of moral system." But then when you push him on it and you ask, "Well, why?" Well, because that's my intuition, and what am I asking?
Yeah, so I guess here's like the main question that I guess, and I think I might have posed this earlier, maybe not exactly this, but like my thing is that like if ultimately all of this like completely reduces to intuitionism, and the way that we weigh everything is going to be done intuitively, that we have no like strict way of doing any of this at all, why not just call it all intuitionism and be done with it? Why pretend to graph, like we're gonna graph a deontological value against the utility of killing 20 people? Well, what if you feel really, really strongly about not murdering someone? Then like it just seems like this is so ill-defined. Why not just call it all intuitionism? To waste time with this other nonsense just seems like it's, I don't know, waste of time.
And that's why it becomes vacuous, is because ultimately,
well, okay,
if I,
let him
I
respond
just
to it.
totally disagree with his view,
Sure.
and I'm just as justified.
Yeah. So, sorry, my laptop went to sleep, so hopefully I'm still here.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah. So the question of intuitionism just resides, I mean, that's answering a different question of how do I know something? The question that we've been dealing with is what kinds of statements are true or false, not how do we know it. So one can be an intuitionist and accept their ethical system, and one could be something else and accept their ethical system. It doesn't really seem like this is bedrock of where you want to poke holes in it.
So, JHC, though, wouldn't you agree that what it is to be an ethical system is to prescribe particular actions in given cases? So insofar as the theory can't prescribe particular actions or produce consistent judgment on those actions, then it's fairly useless as an actual theory.
Well, I don't think so, right? So what I think we're doing when we're doing this sort of stuff is we're charting out moral psychology. Like, I'm an anti-realist, so I think that what we're doing is we're building out descriptions of how it is our like moral psychological faculties actually work.
I would believe you if the labeling was, and I hate it, like, this is cringy, like obsessing over this graph, but if somebody would have presented me this, like, hey, this is my descriptive graph of where I think how people view actions as being moral, I would agree with that. But it didn't feel like that's the way it's presented. It feels like it's a way to tell you if an act it should be seen as morally good or morally bad, or what the most preferable act is, which would be prescriptive, right?
Yeah, I don't know what your I don't know how it was presented to you initially. I know that's kind of a cheap way out, but I mean, all I'm trying to do is, it seems like there's a lot that could be said in favor of this view, even though I'm a moral anti-realist, because I understand what's motivating it.
Well, I understand the motivation as well, of course. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think if we were to drop a couple things, you can ask some really interesting questions. I think you can follow up and say, do you take it that we're all doing something wrong and you can prove it by showing me this system? If so, then this is prescriptive. They mean to change the world with the graph that they presented to you. I don't think that's what they're doing, but maybe that's what they are doing.
Okay.
But let me ask you this. How, again, I know that Destiny, whenever I start to do this, you say, oh, it's a separate question. And we're treating like this
I feel like a whole conversation on like epistemic anti-realism is going to be like a whole other...
No, but that's what this. Do you not remember what Nex said about how what is descriptive is really ultimately always going to be prescriptive?
Yeah, but I think that exists on a higher level than what we can move past that, I think, without having to.
No, we can't, because whenever we push Avi or ask yourself, this is always what it comes down to.
Well, but if the claim here by this guy is that their system is only descriptive, then I think we can kind of like put that aside for a moment if they're not trying to prescribe action.
No, but it isn't. That's the point, is that it isn't just descriptive, it is prescriptive.
Well, do we agree with that?
Well,
and again, I don't see how else you would make use of deontology and consequentialism outside of that framework. I don't know why those theories are being employed for questions of moral psychology.
And even the question of moral psychology, that in itself, like questions of the good, of the bad, of what people determine to be the good or the bad, these are ultimately going to be normative questions that we can't just, oh, well, let's just pretend it's descriptive for now, because that's not what these systems aim to do. And if you're saying that they do this, then you're living in your own little vacuous headspace. And that's why I want to push JHC. Can you please justify to me epistemic anti-realism? Because that's all this is going to come down to. And we'll spend like 2 hours discussing the intricacies of this graph and what it really means to be consequentialist and yada, yada, yada. But nothing's going to get done until we get this question out of the way. And I do seriously have doubts that you are able to sit here and explain to me how you would ever justify epistemic anti-realism without accepting something like complete and utter nihilism.
I mean, I think that is my position, though.
You're a complete nihilist.
Well, I don't know what is meant by that in particular. I don't know what kind of import that has.
Everything is everything. There is no neutral way to compare competing claims. It's absolutely impossible.
Well, I don't have an opinion on whether or not it's impossible. What I do know is that I don't have a really good answer to certain kinds of skepticism.
Well,
So what
maybe,
I do
maybe
is
a
I
different
just
way.
This is ridiculous. This is a waste
Maybe a
of my
different
time.
way to phrase. Maybe a different way to phrase the question is: do you think that the graph would help in such an analysis?
In a prescriptive one, or
Yeah, in an analysis on whether or not you could compare moral judgments. Like, because if the answer is no, then the graph is functionally useless and can be considered vacuous, like everybody's saying. Do you think that
so
the graph could be used in
let's
that
take it as prescriptive for a second, because I'm interested in exploring that, just at least for the sake of the argument. So let's say, and by prescriptive I mean that there's a potential to learn something here as well, right?
sure.
It's normative, which means that if we have some kind of belief in given following something on this graph, it turns out that we ought to have a different moral judgment. We have a reason to change our belief about what we ought to do.
Sure.
So that's what I mean here. So let's.
Well, let him finish. Let him finish. Sorry, go ahead.
So let's try this out.
Okay.
So one of the things that one of the statements I have is a conjunction. X is obligatory even though it incurs negative 50 units of utility.
Okay.
Now, this can just be a belief of mine, right? And this is it's a normative belief. It's normative because no matter what I do, I am stating that I have an obligation.
Sure. So like, and then try to explain why this is not, because this is what I keep hearing when I say this. When you say X is obligatory unless it exceeds negative 50U, it sounds like you're saying X is 50U. That's what I'm hearing. Is that not accurate, or?
X is obligatory even though it incurs negative 50 units of utility. Yes, I'm assigning that this has negative 50 units of utility. X.
So how is that not just rule utilitarianism, or what's the difference? I'm so lost on this. I'm sorry.
Because what I've done here is, remember when I'm not going to ask you to recite my email.
Sure.
I said straightforwardly on act utilitarianism, this would be something like an analytic contradiction.
Sure.
Because what this statement would be is it would turn out to be we ought to do what we ought not to do.
Yeah, which is dumb. Act utilitarianism is dumb for a lot of reasons. I agree.
Right. So that's why this isn't utilitarianism, because you can do things.
But why wouldn't it be rule utilitarianism? Where a rule utilitarian might say that in a local level, we would do something that produces a negative amount of utility because on a universal level, it would produce a positive amount of utility.
Yeah. So then the next one that I said is we ought, on this view that they put forward, one could meaningfully and truthfully put forward the following judgment.
Okay.
We ought to act in accordance with Rule X, even though the adoption of Rule X incurs negative 50 units of utility. That's, again, an analytic contradiction on rule utilitarianism.
I agree with that, but I don't think that would ever, what kind of a statement would that ever be? Like, what action would you ever commit that always has negative utility and provides no upshot utility, but you ought be, like what?
Well, it's the adoption of the rule. It's not any particular instance. So if we're turning this into a question about rule utilitarianism, right? We're now talking about on the deontological side of things, which is underneath the threshold, we'd be saying we ought to act in accordance with Rule X. We're not talking about specific acts. We're talking about acting in accordance with Rule X. So that might not always incur negative 50 units of utility. Sometimes it might be positive. But we're talking about the adoption of the rule in general, which is just what rule utilitarianism is.
So you're saying that on their system, it's possible that they could adopt something that will more often than not produce a negative utility?
Yes.
Like what? Like,
well,
I'm
I don't have to give an example. I don't know that I have to give an example.
This is something where I don't believe they would be able to, because because my claim is that I feel like they really are being utilitarians. I don't feel like they could give an answer here ever where all of the answers that they would give would feel like answers that utilitarian give. So they might say something like lying is something that might give you a little bit of a personal gain, but I don't think you should do it. So there's the negative utility. And I go, okay, well, why do you care about lying? And they would say, well, because if everybody lied often or had the capability of lying often, it would produce a negative utility in society. That ultimately they would be appealing to that utility.
No, so a rule would be, so let's take it this way. One should never spit on homeless people.
Sure.
What does, hold on, pause. Where does that obligation come from?
Well, again,
He can't say because he's a moral anti-realist.
Wait, let him
Right,
let him
but okay, according to the graph, where does it come from?
Does the graph tell you where they come from or how to chart them once you have
Well,
them?
presumably the graph would tell you that that would fall under the deontological like straight line, that's where the initial obligation not to do the action comes from. But I'm asking you, because the ultimate question, the place I'm going with this is saying the way in which that obligation is grounded fundamentally conflicts with what you're weighing it against, namely the utility that it produces. So insofar as that's the case, I'm asking you if you recognize that conflict.
I'm not really sure that I understand. So let's map this onto something kind of real, and let's just tell a story about it real quick, because maybe it'll help me.
Sure.
So let's talk about, what we need is an example of a rule whose adoption incurs a negative amount of utility. So
is this a deontological rule or utilitarian rule? When you say rule.
This is just a rule. This is a guideline, something that you're going to follow.
Okay.
On rule utilitarianism and deontological ethics, it's going to just be a statement like, I ought not do X, or I ought to do X.
Sure.
So let's just take something where it can even be ridiculous, something that we ought to do even though it incurs negative 50 units of utility.
Okay. Eating ketchup.
Okay, so we ought to eat ketchup even though adopting the rule we ought to eat ketchup incurs negative 50 units of utility.
Okay.
Now, you understand how in rule utilitarianism, you never ought to do things, or you never ought to adopt a rule where the acceptance of that rule incurs a negative unit of utility.
Yes, I agree.
That's not, hold on.
Great.
That might not be true.
That's all I need, though.
Well, when you on a local level or on a universal level, because like
universal.
Oh, okay. Wait. Yeah, but my question is, or I'll just say this and let the other guy talk. So I agree that that's true, but I don't think their system ever does that either. That's what I'm saying. They have no obligation that they feel so strongly about that it overrides their consequentialist framework. That's my whole point.
Well, that point though is going to just be. So let's take something else. Let's take.
Can you, not to be like too specific, but can you possibly give me a single obligation that they feel so strongly about that it would override some amount of consequence? Like,
well, I don't know that I have to. All I need, and I'm not trying to be difficult here.
Sure.
All I need is that it's like logically possible that those two things are split apart, because then they don't mean the same thing anymore. It's always hard to come up with examples like this on the fly.
Sure, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
But the point is that it's at least logically possible in their view to accept rules that have bad consequences, as long as it doesn't go over some kind of threshold.
Okay.
And on rule utilitarianism, that's literally nonsense.
Okay, wait. So I might be able to actually solve this whole thing, for at least from my mind. So you're saying that in their system, they could craft a rule that says every 10 days you have to just clench your fist, and that can be their rule. And a utilitarian would never ever craft that rule because it doesn't provide any utility to society, and if anything is a negative one because it depletes calories or something. But they could theoretically craft that rule and have it exist in their system.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. I totally 100% agree with that. So then, theoretically then, the existence of that chart is possible, but prescriptively, this is a totally absurd waste of time. That's what it feels like now. Because when I go into...
The question is, why the hell would I choose this system at all?
Yeah, because the question is going to be like, I can't think of a possible thing outside of really silly examples. I could never think of some obligation they would have that they're not going to ultimately use some utilitarian calculus to weigh, unless it's something really silly with no impact in the real world. It's possible, but why? That would be my question.
Yeah, so... I'll just leave you with
Wait,
some of
you're
the
gonna
Wait, hold on. I don't want to do a huge debate on epistemic fucking anti-realism.
This
Okay.
conversation is a complete fucking waste because what
No, it's
Abby-
not. So
they're
far, it's not a
arguing
waste
for
because
the
I've gained
system.
some level of understanding. Because my level of understanding now is that the graph is, one, I was incorrect. It is possible. It is different than utilitarianism. But the reason why I didn't consider that was because any prediction you can make with this graph is totally fucking worthless. This is
Yes,
what I've
but-
gotten
but
so
that's
far.
what-
But that's
but
okay.
that's-
I'm happy. I feel like I've learned something. Wait, so let JHC finish his final point, and then you can ask him whatever epistemic memes you want, okay?
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, go.
Yeah. So, all I'd like, so I do think that there's a big issue. There's a giant epistemic issue for how you kind of fill out a moral system,
Mhm.
right? I think there's a really giant issue with how you fill out a moral system that doesn't somehow get grounded in something that we're kind of more familiar with. So, and what I mean by that is a lot of people will point to something kind of mysterious. You can think of as kind of a reductio position, like theistic ethics. One could say, look, it's all grounded in the divine will of God that's been revealed to us.
Sure.
Darth Dawkins style. He just copy pastes, moral beliefs into our brains, right? Could have that view. The problem is there's just kind of straightforward issues with that, especially if you're not a theist. What I tend to take their view to be, and I don't want to misrepresent them, is that it's going to ground out in something like preference subjectivism or desire-based motivational theories of ethics, like Humean subjectivism.
Sure.
Now, I've just kind of thrown out some words there, but I do take it, Destiny, that this is similar to what your position
It is. But the difference is that, so like, and I don't know, I'm undecided because holy fuck, I am a total layman in this area. But like, so I might say something like, I am a descriptive egoist or something, right? But I wouldn't try to overlay like other weird systems on top of that. I would just appeal to that period. And because if I get pushed onto my values at any point in time, if I'm going to retreat, and I was like, oh no, this is it, this is my foundation, that would be my system. I wouldn't say like, oh, I am a deontologist, and someone's like, okay, well, what if you have an obligation here that causes, and then I would say, oh no, wait, that's not my preference. Like, well, wait, why not just call your thing egoism or whatever? Then okay, sure, that's what I'll call it. So like when I'm talking to Avi or Ask Yourself, and they're constantly, when I'm like, okay, well, how do you assign a weight to this obligation? I go, oh, intuition. I go, okay, well, how do you choose between an obligation and a utilitarian thing? Oh, intuition. Why not just call yourself intuitionist? Why make this silly graph? Like, this is such a waste of time. Like, nothing that I interpret here is going to provide any meaningful answer because every single person's graph is going to look completely different, right? I assume, I don't know because I'm a horrible reader and I don't read, but I assume that for Kant's like categorical norms or whatever, right? Or categorical imperatives, these are things that he assumes would be shared by all people. For Isaac's graph and Avi's graph, if every single person were to make it, they would all look completely different and their graphs would be totally worthless. They would all weigh every single thing differently. So like, why not just talk about intuitionism instead?
Well, I think that they are. I mean, maybe they are intuitionists. I'm not sure if they are or they aren't.
The reason why I say they're intuitionists is when I push them on how to weigh one or the other, they say intuition. But go ahead.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah, you said that they relied on intuition, so that's fine. But I still take it that there's a meaningful. If somebody says, "I'm an intuitionist about ethics," I don't all of the sudden. I haven't gained an understanding of the rest of their views, which is that, oh, they're intuitionists, but they think that there's some kind of threshold that once you cross it, it switches to consequentialism. I understand that it's still filled out with intuitions, but that still is a meaningful addition that I wouldn't have inferred from them saying the words, I'm an intuitionist.
But this is where I totally disagree. Because if somebody were to say, oh, well, I'm a deontologist until it crosses a meaningful threshold into utilitarianism, I say, really? I could ask two separate people on that threshold. One person could say, I would only kill one person if I could save 10,000 people. And another person might say, I would kill one person if they were older than another person. Both of these people fit those exact same criteria, but we are worlds apart in terms of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So the question is there an explanation of why that's the case, right?
Which they appeal to intuitionism, right? Or an explanation for how they choose one or the other. Sorry, or maybe you're talking about a different explanation.
But even they themselves might have a way of sketching this out on intuitionism that is somewhat meaningful to them.
That would be
So-
interesting if they had proposed it, but they don't. When you push them on that, they just say, "Oh, it's axiomatic," and then they just stop. They don't have another, because if they did have another system, we would be having a discussion about that, not whatever dumb graph it is. We would be having a discussion on how they map values out to data, because that would be their real moral system. That would be their real system of ethics or whatever. Would be how they map things onto obligations. That's the interesting question, not whatever else we're talking about now.
Well, and the reason that they can't is because they are moral anti-realists, and they suffer the grounding problem, and they can't provide an answer to that. That's what this comes down to.
If you're a subjectivist, obligations are going to most likely ground out first in, if I'm a subjectivist, I ought to do that which I have most reason to do. And the subjectivist part is I have the most reason to do based on the weight of some belief desire pair. Two things that are naturally explicable, things I can understand in terms of the sciences, they're not spooky, and we at least have like a potential like scientific project. This is different than somebody like Sam Harris, who thinks that he can kind of have moral realism and subjectivism at the same time. But
it really feels like the exact same thing to me, though. Like, Sam Harris looks at the problems of anti-realism, and he wants to just basically sneak in his oughts from his ises. This is like everybody wants to be able to say, like, okay, well, look, I can show that people are healthy and happy, so that should just be the ought. And Sam Harris seems like he wants to, like, look, guys, like, this should just be the ought. Like, you know, it's real, really.
Yeah.
But then these guys are doing the same thing, where they're saying, like, you know, deontology's got some shit, and utilitarianism shit, but it's got good shit in both. Like, let's just put them together and kind of, like, pick and choose. Like, yeah, you know, it works. It's cool. It feels like the exact same thing to me.
Well, here's the difference. And this is where Sam Harris just kind of flies off the rails. If you ask Sam Harris, why ought I increase well-being, right? He'll just say, put your hand on the stove and test it yourself.
Yeah, his appeal system's stupid, yeah.
Okay. Now, the subjectivist will continue to fill out that story. We ought not to just avoid putting our hands on stoves just because, and that's it, and shrug your shoulders and say I dare you to test the thesis. They say, look, you have a desire to avoid pain, and putting a hand on stove causes pain. So they've gone a step further, and oughts, at least on this view they've proposed, bottom out in something explicable in terms of psychological phenomena.
And when you say a step further, like it's many steps further, right? Like, and I totally admit I'm ignorant of the literature, but I'm willing to bet lots of money that if I were to pick up like a book on Kant, I don't think that I would read like chapter 1, here's the categorical imperatives, and this is just it because they are, and it's like 10 pages, and that's all of Kant. Like, I'm willing to bet that he spends a great deal of time trying to ground these out as much as possible. No?
He has an 1,000-page book on it.
Yeah, so it's not just like, well, this is just it because it is. Like that. Or I'm sorry, I'm not trying to mock you or anything, but I'm just saying like that view just seems so vacuous and reductionist. Like, why even posit it? Like, why would you ever even say that? Like, you're not offering anything. You're not giving anybody any sort of prescription for how to guide their actions. As we said earlier, everybody's graphs could look completely different. You're obviously not offering up anything new for consideration. Like, you should act good unless it causes really bad things to happen, which is essentially what you're saying, right? Like, you shouldn't lie unless it causes a lot of bad. Like, I don't know.
It's because
Oh,
for these people, it's literally feels over reals. That's literally what it comes down to. That's what the moral anti-realist comes down to. It's how I feel. How I feel is going to be quote unquote right within my system.
So just like, I guess like kind of a way to bridge this to see where we're at. So like, I do agree that in certain readings that graph is not strictly utilitarian. I can agree with that. Do we agree that the graph is ultimately worthless or doesn't really add anything new to in terms of a person's like ethical framework or meta-ethical framework, that it doesn't really give us anything to look at? Or do we still think there's some value being added there?
Well, I'm not going to kind of speculate on some of this, and I'm not trying to
okay, wait, sorry, I have to cut in here. I came into this conversation. You asked for me to have this conversation.
Well, no, I just wanted to have a conversation on the graph. I just wanted to settle everybody's point.
He asked me to have a private conversation. Then you asked if you could join. Okay?
Oh, sorry. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, I don't want to. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. My bad.
I have said repeatedly, the issue I have with Avi's and Ask Yourself system is that they are completely vacuous and they are completely anti-realist. And you've literally sat in here and said, I don't know if I'm a nihilist or not. I have no opinion on whether or not I'm a nihilist. You're, like, I get labeled a sophist when your position
Sophist?
is whatever. When your position is the most sophist it could possibly be. And if you accuse me, oh, you're attacking me with an ad hominem, well, guess what? My axiomatic system says that I can label whatever the fuck I want to be sophistry. And you can never tell me that my system is wrong because you are a moral anti-realist and you have no way to object to the. And I know I'm getting
but I feel like the difference is that we're not attacking JHC's moral system, right? If he might be the ultimate skeptic, but we're talking about Avian, unless you wanted to just discuss his.
But that's all I was, because JHC has come here as the defender for Avi and Ask Yourself, and he asked to discuss with me my views basically on the anti-realism, because I linked him a video of Neck and Rawls, who we were discussing with earlier, to people who are graduates, explaining why this system is just so absurd and why moral anti-realism is ridiculous, because all things that are descriptive are ultimately prescriptive. And you have said that you can't actually provide me a defense of moral anti-realism, and that you're not willing to do that. And I feel like I've sat here for, I don't know how long it's been, but I feel like I've wasted, an hour and a half of my life.
You could have been reading Aristotle by now.
Yeah, and I could have been reading Aristotle. So
okay, all right, go for it. I've gotten what I've wanted out of the conversation, so knock yourself out.
No, but you should, for the sake of this, because this is what all comes down to. This is whether or not Avi and Ask Yourself are complete idiots.
Well, if this guy is the ultimate skeptic, nothing you say is gonna. All of his points are unassailable. Like,
are you the ultimate skeptic, JHC?
I know, that's a yes. That's a yes.
Defend your honor. That's a yes. I know I've tore you down. I defend your honor, please. Give me a defense. That's all I want.
Why would I give a defense of skepticism?
Yeah, he doesn't have to. It's you don't need to defend it. It's the ultimate skeptic. You're done.
This is absolutely ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is an embarrassment to philosophy. It's an embarrassment to philosophy.
Equivalent of burning someone at the stake.
I mean, yeah. So there you go, dude.
Is that you won't? Will you give me a defense at all?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Can you give me a defense of epistemic anti-realism?
No, but okay. I think, but okay. But I think I can successfully resist a.
Well, no, of course you can. You live in your own little bubble.
Okay.
Can you chill?
I am upset here.
Calm down.
I don't.
Well, look, I let me just say, the bits that I heard was that people were objecting to this because it was just utilitarianism, and I'm not trying to just harp on one. Well, hold on. So what I did, so you guys know, because you may not have seen, was I said, well, I'm not a moral realist, so I'm not really interested in statements coming out as right or wrong and them being true or false.
You don't care about anything.
Yeah, that's what I said. Keep going.
Hold on a second. So, but what I was pretty sure is that Destiny was getting caught up on something that wasn't, or ought not to be, understood subjectively, Rem. It's not something that we should be caught up on. There are more interesting pieces to this argument than is this just
in my axiomatic system. I think that this is something we should get caught up on.
Stop being a bully.
I am being a bully because this is a disgusting, abhorrent
It's not.
view.
We listen.
Yes,
we
what do you mean? You
okay,
can
no.
Absolutely anything with his worldview. Like, these are people who should be disowned from philosophy. I don't know. Like, if you say you teach in universities, it's disgusting to me. That is what it is. It is disgusting.
I imagine that when he teaches in universities, he probably doesn't teach ultimate skepticism. I'm sure he's familiar with other views and teaches those views. No.
I don't fucking know.
Depends on the class.
And to be fair, I think that's what would have happened here if I wasn't kind of pressed on my own position, right? I mean, I've been perfectly fine talking about utilitarianism and things that are true and false about utilitarianism without myself being utilitarian.
How can you? But then I could push you on every single one of these points. I could say, okay, what do you mean by true?
Well, what he's gonna, yeah, but his response is gonna be, I personally don't believe in this, but I'm describing it within the context of these systems.
No, but okay, but every single defense that you ever give is going to be mediated by your own subjective.
Well, no, because he would ground it out in their epistemic norms. No, isn't that?
but even the system of possibly grounding it out in someone else's epistemic norms requires your own epistemic norms.
Not if you're not being an asshole. No, come on.
No, don't their epistemic norms also just involve their intuitions? So how can either A, he know his intuitions, and B, how can their intuitions form it?
Yep. That's a great question.
Sorry,
I'd be very interested.
what is your question?
So their answer to every question was, hey, I just have intuitions. So if we were to interrogate what their epistemic norms were, they would likely answer with, they're just my intuitions. So my question is, one, how could you know their intuitions? And two, even if we could know them, how can intuitions form a basis for having an epistemic conversation?
Look, so I think that those are actually more interesting questions. The questions, the epistemological questions of filling out any moral realist system, including theirs, which they're not going to say is moral realist, but just charting this out, I think that there are really interesting epistemological questions there, and those are the ones you should have been asking. But I don't think, Destiny, that you should have gotten. I don't think you should have gotten hung up on whether or not it's utilitarian or not. I think
well,
it's
the reason why I wanted to figure that framework out is because we can't really have a discussion if we're not moving past the framework. That's what it felt like to me. Like if you're pretending that, because what I want to know, if I'm going to have a discussion on morals with somebody, I want to know, are you valuing obligations or are you valuing consequence? Because how we discuss things is going to be dramatically different. So for real life example, if I have a discussion on criminal justice and we talk about somebody that's raped 3 people, should this person be executed just because of the atrocity of their actions, or should we consider whether or not this person could be reformed? Some people will answer, I don't care, even if he could be reformed, I don't care. I want this person murdered just on the basis of the immorality of their actions, period. If that's the framework by which you're working with, I'm not going to appeal to any type of consequence. I could tell you that this person will be healed and he will go on to be a doctor and save 100,000 children from death. And this person will still be like, I don't care. Rapists don't deserve to have second chance in society like that. So that's why I focus so much on this. I do agree with you that much the same as Sean Carroll talking to Sam Harris, that this conversation is exceedingly boring and entirely worthless. But until you figure this out, it feels really hard to move on and have a substantiative conversation past figuring out this framework question. That's what it feels like to me.
Sure. Yeah. So just a couple notes. Mm-hmm. For one, I think there has been kind of progress made on the utilitarian question. And two, I do think there is an interesting question about how to explain how people think about whether they're intuitions or they're just explicit beliefs that they can ground somehow some other way, but how they marry together multiple competing intuitions. Mm-hmm. This has just been a perennial issue. A lot of times what they do is they say it's going to all be utilitarian, and then they start filling out all of these stories, and sometimes they bite the bullet. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they say what we ought to do is we ought to sacrifice a healthy person for a bunch of sick people. Sure. And they'll just bite the bullet on that. And that's what goodness means. And everybody else is left with, but that's not what I mean by goodness. Sure. So I do think that this is an interesting attempt at solving this. And
okay, and then this is, so not to sound mean, but like this is what I take issue is that I would say it's a wholly uninteresting attempt because all of the important questions are completely left unanswered. I can
make a 10-dimensional graph and it's going to be just as useful as theirs.
Okay, wait. Well, so Rem is trolling, but like that's what I would say. Like I could make any other graph and say, well, look, I weigh 15 different dimensions of obligations, but that's not the interesting question. The interesting question is, okay, well, how do you map those obligations onto utility? That's really what I want to talk about.
Right.
Ultimately, whoever has eaten the most olives in their lifetime, that'll be the first axis. And then, the amount of baths that one takes.
But see, that's a question of moral epistemology, which is how do we know these principles? And I think that's an interesting question.
But you refuse to go down it.
Well, no, that's because we're not talking about his epistemological grounds.
But you refuse to,
or epistemic.
You refuse to even explain how Ask Yourself and Avi would do it.
Well, they use intuitionism, right?
I think that it sounds like they provided an answer, right? You just don't like it.
What was their answer?
Intuition.
That everything's axiomatic?
Yeah.
Well, but
that's the answer?
The problem with the answer of intuition is that they still kept appealing to the graph as if it was something separate from their intuitions, which seems to suggest that there is still some other underlying assumption or framework by which they can use to juxtapose utilitarianism and deontology.
See, that's the objection that I'm not entirely getting.
So
I might be.
yeah, so the explanation for that is that, like, if you tell me that deontology is worth 50 points and this utilitarian act is worth 100 points, what are those points being measured in? How are you weighing? How are you making these two totally disparate systems commensurable with one another? That's the question. I want to know what framework you're using to unify those things. That is intensely interesting to me. I would love an answer because that's like the fucking solution to morality, like, right? Like, if I can find a way to weigh moral obligations against consequence in society, like, holy fuck, like, that feels like an insanely awesome thing to be able to do.
You should read Rawls.
So I can tell you what I think a way of filling that out would be, and this is going to be naturalistic, right? Because I don't like magic like Rem does. But,
oh, give me a fucking break! You can't throw that shit out there if you're unwilling to defend your own fucking position.
It's too easy, Destiny.
How are you a PhD student and you participate in discourse?
He's not a student. He's already graduated.
I'm not a student.
Even worse. Like, how can you possibly sit here?
This is so good because now I don't have to waste my time going to school because I was already an ultimate skeptic. So I fucking if that's like the end destination, damn, dude.
Like, you're trying to throw out all of these claims about how to do certain things in ethics without willing to defend, the process in which we do them.
Well, what I don't want to happen, and I'll be
defend your view. Obviously.
Wait, chill. Keep going.
For a moment, is that they're kind of two totally disparate questions. One is, which I was kind of hoping to chat about, is what's the relationship between the view they're putting forward and deontology and utilitarianism? And I wanted to help clear that up a little bit, and I think we made at least a little progress. Second question, which I was asked a couple times, is how would you fill that out, and how do you think that Avi and Isaac would fill that out? And
so I fill it out using rule utilitarianism for me personally. So I have consequences that I want to see in society, and then I try to enact rules that I think would get everybody as invested in that as possible that would cause them to enact those outcomes. That would be...
Wait, you're a moral realist, Destiny?
I think I'm a soft realist, apparently. I try not to use a label because every time I talk to a different educated philosopher, they seem to have different... So I'm not going to say I'm a moral realist or anti-realist, but I will say that we can make truth statements regarding morals insofar as morals are things contained in human minds.
He's a cognitivist.
No, yeah, sure. Okay.
Can I take this opportunity to convert Destiny to Rawlsianism? Because it sounds like his justification for being a rule...
No, fuck Rawls, because I don't believe in that curtain bullshit, because ultimately I still want to appeal to people's preferences, okay?
Well,
that curtain bullshit.
Yeah, listen.
Bullshit can arguably just be a rhetorical exercise. The actual justifications for the difference principle and the principle of equal liberty
but the difference is I don't believe in enacting a just society because a just society for everyone would protect everyone or whatever. I believe in enacting a just society because it benefits ultimately every single individual person's preferences. I think those are meaningful distinctions.
Right, although that's what the difference principle does. I'm not sure what you...
Okay, fine, then I'm fucking Rawlsian, whatever the fuck that means. Okay? Yeah, there we go. There's another label that the next philosopher that talks to me can tell me is wrong. But anyway, wait, real quick, going back to that. But that's what I would do, and it feels to me like that rule utilitarianism can encompass literally everything that they try to do in this graph. So again, to give that same example earlier, we could murder one person to save 5 people. An act utilitarian might say, oh yeah, look, that's positive. But I would say, well, if we were to craft that rule for society that murdering 1 to save 5 is good, that would actually fuck everything set up. No one would go to the hospital anymore. Nobody would fucking trust anybody anymore. It would create a net negative in society that if we were to measure the utility, overall it would decrease because of a mistrust of other people.
Yeah, can I just say, like, I'm very aware that I'm being very hostile. I understand. Look, I'm sure.
I mean, you are a sophist.
Look, JT, I bet you're a great guy to talk to. I totally get it. And
you guys have been assuming my gender for a very long time tonight, and it's making me
I know
uncomfortable.
it is a she, right? It is a she.
Can you not say it?
It is a she, but then Desi started saying
no,
he, and I'm like,
I said she initially, and Avi or somebody else corrected me to he. I'm sorry, I was saying she initially. My bad.
Yeah, I was saying she initially too. Then someone else said he, and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I'm wrong. So my bad. She.
Okay, go to she. Yeah, my bad. Okay, keep going.
So I have been on this. I've been trying to find look, my Reddit post that I posted. I'll link it here in chat. I'm sure you've probably seen it before. It invokes the companions and guilt argument.
Oh, Avi was the one that corrected me, by the way. Yeah, sorry. So okay.
I have been looking for so long for some sort of defense from someone who shares Ask Yourself's views, and absolutely no one will give it to me. And it's really frustrating that we have people defending epistemic anti-realism who are unwilling to address the issue at hand. And so it really bugs me that we came into this discussion. That is basically what I thought you were going to do. And then to hear you say, oh, well, yeah, I might be a nihilist. I don't know, maybe. And your unwillingness to, pursue that line of questions. It's really
let me just clarify a little bit. Nihilism is kind of a slippery word. Sometimes it just means like error theory, right?
So you're farther than error theory, obviously.
I agree. So but when somebody says, "Oh, so you're just a nihilist," I don't know if they're summing up the things they just said about me, or if they're trying to import a lot of baggage with nihilist, like I'm some kind of emo cutter or something.
I think it should be apparent that I'm not calling you an emo cutter.
But so instead of just calling me a nihilist, I guess you can ask.
It's meant to be a dirty word. It is meant to be a dirty word to somehow get you to defend, because I don't know what else to do with people like you who are unwilling to defend their views, other than to literally supply you with ad hominems. Because if someone is unwilling to justify their
that's
views,
not a
what the fuck am I supposed to do? No, Jesse, what do you expect me to do?
Well, right now, I just wanted to have a conversation about the other people's moral system.
But again, you came into this.
Oh, yeah, you're right. My bad. You're right. That's true. I imposed myself.
The discussion was supposed to be about this, and I've gotten nothing about it.
Wait, well, is that actually true? JHC, did you come in here with the intention of defending ultimate skepticism to...
Look, I have the logs right here. I have the logs.
I don't remember saying that. I think I just said, can we recall?
Yeah, I was asking you. I had a whole little mini rant about if you won't actually engage with the questions of securing justification, of explaining how we justify non-factualism about a priori axioms, then it is not worth discussing with you. And then Avi said, able to do this on voice, and then I accused him of, well, don't you have a patient? Funny. And I said, so you engage with the questions provided you by people studying the field because you... and blah, 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 blah. And then you said to this, can I call you on voice? Can I call you on voice? So obviously I'm coming into this thinking that you're going to address the questions I was posing to you and not go on this, random tangent with Destiny. Like, I get Destiny is streaming and whatnot, but I came on here thinking that for once in my life, someone with your position would defend their view. And
what's your favorite? What's the most challenging response to the companions and guilt argument that you've read?
I haven't heard any.
Right. So
I've heard epistemic realism.
I asked this question a little bit in bad faith, and I do apologize for that. But
I provide one in my post right there to the companions and guilt argument. I provide it right here. I say, and this is where all the talk of axiomatic schemes and axioms and assumptions is absolutely garbage. It becomes sophistry. It is devoid of truth. It is devoid of logic. It is devoid of rationality. It becomes a war of convincing others to join your axiomatic scheme while simultaneously recognizing that outside it all, your doctrine that we ought not to kill animals is externally just as valid as my doctrine that we ought to kill all individuals of a single racial group.
Ooh, that sounds real good to me. Wait, is this what you would disagree with?
What? No, I'm saying that it's impossible to choose which of those views is just as valid as each other.
Hell yeah.
And that killing a whole... Oh, I see. I don't know how that went right over my head.
All right, so Dustin,
well, I'm not trolling. That's true. What?
Wait,
No.
you think killing everyone of a racial group is just as valid as...
Well, if by valid you mean sound, and if by sound we're analyzing the premises by which we're building the zone, and if we realize that they're ultimately arbitrary, right? Or
no, we're talking about normative things here. These are epistemic norms. Remember, this is what Nick was talking about. How epistemic norms govern our rational decision making.
Yeah, but ultimately the choosings of our epistemic norms are all done post hoc, and it's all arbitrary at the end. No, or that's my belief.
Destiny.
I'm sorry. Okay, so go back to LHC. Sorry, go back.
Okay, yes, go on, JC, please. You were saying something about bad faith.
Yeah, I guess I was accusing you of something that I don't mean to be accusing you of, but I guess one thing that I'm interested in is you do seem a little fired up about this topic, which is really nice because a lot of philosophers end up becoming kind of cynical over time because these questions seem pretty unanswerable. But if I look,
I appreciate that you've viewed my extreme hostility in a good light. But yeah, go ahead.
I've dealt with freshman philosophy students all the time. I'm not.
Ooh.
Whoa, you cannot provide a backhand when you're still not giving me a defense of your view.
20, if this is going to be an appeal to the numbers, but I wonder where you have all this energy from.
Okay, no, don't
and
give
this
me
is
this
just lighthearted
about percentage
Wait,
of people
go.
who are anti-realists, because I know where this is going.
Wait,
Just
isn't it
give
only
me
like
goddamn defense?
What's the number?
Isn't it like 24% are anti-realist?
28, please.
Okay, my bad. Isn't it like 49 or 50% are realist and then 25 or something else?
But if we actually go into the stats here and we look at, let's see, and we target faculty respondents.
Oh boy.
Meta-ethics. I wonder what it is. So for meta-ethics, only 15% deny a priori knowledge. Only 15%.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you're selecting for that field,
I'm not asking about that.
Oh, sorry. If you're selecting for that field, like, wouldn't those people have to recognize it? Otherwise, why? If you were an ethical anti-realist, why the fuck would you go into studying meta-ethics? No.
I want to comment that most people don't study. I think most people aren't even aware of the companions and guild hierarchy. Quite frankly, I don't think most people are aware.
No, I mean I don't think that's true.
In philosophy, you think most people are aware of the companions and guild argument?
Yeah, I'm pretty.
I don't think so.
No, sorry, not in philosophy in general. Certainly in meta ethics.
Oh no, I'm talking about just in general.
But if I change the Phil Papers survey.
Okay, hold up. No.
To meta ethics.
Just give me a defense of your goddamn view. Stop appealing to other people.
Well,
just give me your defense.
What's the argument? And I'll tell you.
I linked my entire argument. Why are we still dancing around this?
Paper, so...
But you understand that this is 4,000 words in a Reddit post.
Look, just look at epistemic anti-realism. One, if the epistemic anti-realist is true or is right, I don't know, I formatted this wrong. Then there are no epistemic reasons for belief. If there are no epistemic reasons for belief, here, I'll just fucking copy paste this and ignore grammar. I have to number it because the numbers don't get copied. I'm very excited. If I can hear a defense of this, I'm gonna go to bed happy tonight. Otherwise, I'm gonna be.
I'll just tell you. So, premise 3 says either we should, or no. So either the epistemic anti-realist is false, or there are no epistemic reasons to believe it.
Yeah, ignore the grammar. Yes.
Yeah, so I would say that there are no epistemic reasons to believe it. There are no normative reasons to be like an epistemic realist.
Right. So you go to 4. So we should reject the epistemic anti-realist theory. So the epistemic existence premise is true.
No. I just told you that I don't believe that there are shoulds about it. Premise 4 says we should reject a epistemic anti-realist theory.
No. We're saying either the epistemic anti-realist theory is false. Okay. Mm-hmm. So either your view is false, or we shouldn't, or we don't have an epistemic. So you're saying that the epistemic anti-realist theory is false.
No, the second one. I'm just going to eat shit in this one and say that I don't have epistemic reasons to believe it.
Oh.
Well, right. Hang on.
What?
Wait, hang on. This might be a really dumb question, so I apologize in advance, and I don't want to trigger Rome. But on 3, isn't the notion that you need an epistemic reason to believe something that epistemic anti-realism would reject anyway?
Yeah.
Yes, it's just kind of question beggy. I'm just like I said, I just eat shit on this one anyway.
No, but because it feels like you're saying like I'm gonna make a 3-part thing, right? Like premise 1, like all logic is true. Premise 2, you either have to accept that all logic is true, or you have to reject it. And if you reject that logic, you're using logic to reject it. Therefore, you believe it. Like is it not? That feels.
This looks like. This reminds me of Aristotle's argument against, like, on the principle of non-contradiction. But that itself is also not terribly compelling. So I'm not entirely sure why 3 follows from.
Okay, so look. So if the epistemic anti-realist theory is true, there are no epistemic reasons for belief, right? Yes, we all agree on this. Okay. So if there are no epistemic reasons for belief, then there's no epistemic reason to believe the epistemic anti-realist. So either the epistemic anti-realist is false. Okay. So you either accept that, or there's no epistemic reason to believe it. Okay.
Yep,
and so if there's no epistemic, so again, if we're saying that there's no epistemic reasons to believe anything, that means there's no epistemic reason to accept your own theory. And there is no reason to accept yours over mine.
I'm not asking you to accept mine.
So, okay, so
doesn't this only apply to the person that accepts epistemic reasons?
No.
Right. And also, further, 4 4 would only follow if you believed that you had to hold some kind of epistemic
Of course. And so
view.
if you keep reading my post, I say, well, how did they get out of this? And I specifically say here, I say, and this is where all the talk of axiomatic schemes, axiomatic assumption, it becomes and if I go back to that thing I linked to, that thing I read at the very start, if no evidential system is more correct than any other, then I cannot coherently think that a particular belief is unjustified, no matter how crazy it may be, so long as that belief is grounded in a fundamental set of epistemic norms that permit it, no matter how crazy they may be. Okay?
So, Rem,
that is
then
what we
your
arrived at.
Then your argument isn't what you've posted here. Rather, the argument is more that epistemic anti-realism results in
Sorry. The 5-point thing is just the second half of my argument. And then I say, oh, well, how can they get out of this? And
so
that's exactly what I describe.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't even seem like you really need to engage with it because there isn't a logical way. You're falling into the same trap that Aristotle was worried that you'd fall into.
No. I'm very aware of this. He specifically asked what the argument against epistemic anti-realism is, and I fully acknowledge that the epistemic anti-realist just simply, jumps out at 3. I get that. But then my actual argument here is that it becomes, well, how do we then compare across different epistemic systems? And it literally just becomes this war of words that's devoid of any substance. That's really what my argument is.
I'll take that one.
That's fair.
And you'll accept that.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, that's the whole point of being the ultimate skeptic, isn't it? Isn't that?
So, you're just, and this is my literally end here. I say total anti-realists should not be given thought. They are not worth talking to. They are not worth listening to. They
well,
live
but
in their
even
own
I think
magical
even a
world devoid
total
of any real connection to the way we have subjective
even a
experience.
total anti-realist would acknowledge that, though. I don't think you're making a claim that he would that she would reject.
You're just restating like anti-realism back to me in a number of different ways.
I am an epistemic anti-realist, so I will start obeying by your norms. So you do accept that epistemic realism is true, then, right?
I hold epistemic realism, non-realism. Sorry.
Okay, so you do accept epistemic realism. So whenever you say, well,
I've lost
the way that my system of epistemic norms works is that whenever you say a view that I disagree with, I actually take you to be holding my view. Because remember, there's no way for my.
But then she would just make the decision to stop talking to you, and then that would be the end of the conversation.
Well, no fucking shit, Destiny. That's the whole point here. Is that it avoids complete meaninglessness.
But that's her whole point. Is that they would
philosophy.
say. Well, yeah, I know, this is what the ultimate skeptic would say, right? They would say, yeah, you shouldn't engage in me. I have nothing. Yeah, I think everything you're doing.
Saying, I could have played it. No, there's no way to. If people cannot see that their position is just as valid as Hitler's position, I mean, if that does not strike you as intuitively disastrous and intuitively ridiculous,
intuitive,
then, intuitive in the. I
think Hitler did some things that I don't agree with, but honestly,
now you're just trolling.
Careful. Be really careful here.
Yeah,
buddy.
you're just trolling.
I think you said some really interesting things about epistemic anti-realism that are worth looking into.
This is ridiculous. This was a waste of time. This is a total waste of time. I mean, she has literally acknowledged that absolutely every view is just as valid as another. So that it isn't philosophy. You're not. But that's not.
Well, so if you were going to try to deconstruct her views, it wouldn't be interesting. But assuming that she has a competent level of expertise in other views, we can still have a discussion about other people's views. So, for instance, no, I disagree. This is where I disagree. Maybe this is what makes me the soft realist: is that I might not know something about Kantian ethics or whatever, and I think that I could have a conversation with her, and she could explain those to me, even if she doesn't necessarily herself believe in them.
Oh, sure, but we're talking about justifying certain.
Well, she could give me other justifications. She could give me.
I'm not saying that they're not worth talking to. I'm saying that they're not worth talking to if you're trying to understand or provide justification to views that are inherently anti-realist.
Sure.
You said they weren't.
Really what I was doing. That's what this whole conversation was originally about. So what have we acknowledged here? 1, the position is totally vacuous. 2, killing all the Jews is just as valid an epistemic system as not eating animals. Okay, cool. And 3, it just proves to me again that, these total anti-realists, epistemic anti-realists.
It's very funny
not worth
because
talking to.
you sound a lot like Isaac right now when Isaac is grilling me,
No.
but you guys claim to no, because Isaac would do the same thing. Isaac go, oh, so you're telling me that murdering a human and saving a child are the same kind of thing to you? And I go, yeah, I don't believe in objective morals, so sure, both.
Destiny,
And then he would
think
continue to
back to
laugh
what-
at me. He would continue to laugh at me, pointing out all of these different things that he views as bad as his system, and I would just go,
Believe
yeah,
it or
sure.
not, Destiny.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I think there's a fundamental difference between my view, which is moral realism, and the view of epistemic anti-realism, which holds killing all the Jews and eating
Oh
animals.
no! I
to be
acknowledge that. I
fundamentally the
acknowledge
same
that there's a difference.
epistemically.
But for the past like 30 minutes, all you're doing is saying like, "Oh, you believe
What else
this
can I do,
epistemic
Destiny?
anti-realist thing. Oh, you believe
Destiny,
this.
what else can I do?
Nothing. It's the ultimate skeptic. That's the whole point. There's nothing you could do. It's an unassailable
No,
position.
So from my position, you must see that from this moral realist position, I have a moral duty to attack this position on every single grounds I can.
This is what Isaac said to me.
Disgusting and
Isaac said,
abhorrent.
even though I acknowledge that your position is valid and consistent, I'm going to do everything I can to say how horrible your position is because it disagrees with my epistemic norms.
No.
And then he would, and he would go,
because
so
can't do that
Destiny
because
says
he is an
that it's not
epistemic
morally
anti-realist.
wrong to murder 17 women. And I go, yeah, no, I don't. It's because it's not a moral thing. And you go, well, I have a moral
Destiny,
obligation.
Are you absolutely forgetting everything that we talked about with Neck and Rawls about, our epistemic normativity? Are you disavowing all of that?
I'm not disavowing it. I might not be on the same level as JHC. I don't think I am. But I'm just saying that your problem with her is that she's an ultimate skeptic, and then you keep saying like, whoa, well, then do you believe in this ultimate skeptic thing? And then she's going, yeah, I do. And you go, oh, well, what about this ultimate skeptic thing? And she go, yeah, I do. And you go, what about this ultimate? And it's like, yeah, we get it. Like,
Okay,
right?
so I can sit here and defend, which I won't do, but I could defend the Holocaust. And
No,
you
no,
would say that
they
my
would.
view
No.
is
She would
valid
argue
and
that it's
fair.
indefensible or just as
No,
defensible
I'm
as
asking
any other
you,
thing.
Destiny.
Oh.
I'm asking you because you're accusing me of somehow being on the same level as Isaac.
Sure.
And are you willing to defend?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that you're on the same level. I'm just saying that you're performing like a certain action right now that reminds me of
What
that.
action? What action am I doing?
Where you're taking her epistemic anti-realism and then you're like quoting it back like a million different ways at her, saying like, "How can you believe this? Are you to believe this?" And they're going like, "Yeah."
Yeah, and the reason I'm doing that is because that view leads to disastrous ethical consequences. So are you saying that my view, that these fundamental assertions, which are obviously completely absurd, and attacking them in any way possible, is somehow on the same
Well, here,
level?
I'm
as
not
Isaac?
necessarily sure if we agree with that. Okay, wait, JHC, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think that the world... I'm going to try not to sound too much like Sam Harris here. Do you think that there are certain actions that can fulfill more people's preferences than other actions?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. We probably agree then on a lot of stuff, I would guess. So, for instance, like I would make a description of if I were to buy donuts for some people working on a construction project, that I would noticeably increase the quality of their lives. Descriptively, I do this because it makes me feel good. It's easy for me to do. But I would never make the claim I ought to do that or doing that was morally good. Would you agree with all those statements, JHC?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, cool. So then...
But hey, JC, would you accept that killing all the Jews and not eating animals aren't the exact same level of normativity?
I would.
And that they're just ethically
I
the
would,
same?
yeah. I would, yeah.
You would actually say that, Destiny.
Yeah, that you can't really make a concrete moral statement about any of these
Destiny,
things.
You're lost, Destiny. I think you're. Do I have to bring Neck back? No, Neck isn't even gonna worth talking to you. Neck.
All right. Hey guys,
How
Sorry,
I'm
go ahead.
look. I'm in Vegas. I'm gonna head out.
Okay.
And this seems like it's been a lot of fun. Destiny, you're my spirit animal. Rem, it's been really nice talking to you. I hope we can be best friends in the future.
Me too.
Wait,
You
can
know
I,
what? I'm really
JC?
against
Wait,
you,
this
but
is
I
this is
have
where we
hope I'll
might wait.
convert you.
Real quick, JC. Can I ask you one question? Because this might be where we either disagree or we have a lot more common ground than Rem. Okay. Do you think that it would be possible where I could construct a moral system, understanding that that system just exists in my mind, and then speak to moral rights or wrongs within the confines of that system? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you?
No, hold on. That
Oh,
doesn't make
cool.
sense.
Yeah, we're like the same shit, dude. Okay.
No, that literally doesn't make sense
Alright.
because my view is
I'll
also
let you guys
moral things
work
are
it out.
constructed in the mind.
Okay. Have fun.
Sure.
Good luck.
All right. Kill him, Destiny.
I
Destiny,
can't.
my
I'm gonna
own
die now.
view
Good luck.
is that morality is mind dependent. So what are you talking about?
I don't know anymore. I don't want to defend this
Destiny, I
without.
can't
I
believe
need
you
my
just
PhD
accepted the
friend here.
view that killing Jews and eating animals are on the same ground morally.
So I wouldn't say that they're on the. I wouldn't say they're on the same ground. No, Claire. We're doing philosophy now, so let's be clear. I wouldn't say they're on the same ground. I would say that we can't know about which ground they're on at all, which
You're
kind of sounds like
we can't know.
Exactly.
We can't know if killing the Jews is just as bad as picking up a fork.
Correct. I would say we can't know about what is goodness or badness.
God.
We can't know about that.
Oh my God, that's
because don't tell Nick, okay? Don't tell Nick. I feel like that guy kind of liked me, and now he's gonna hate me. I'm sorry.
I can't believe it.
No, but I think Nick would agree with me here, and he would say, okay. Nick would say, okay, cool. However, we could conceive of moral systems that all of us could construct, and then we could come to an agreement within those moral systems that these things are good or bad.
That you're lying to yourself if you actually are saying what you're saying now. He would say you're lying to yourself, and that this thing is impossible.
Yeah.
Don't you see though that trying to come to an agreement with a bunch of people that have come to different kinds of conclusions? That's exactly what the graph that you're having a big fucking problem with is exactly trying to do. So doesn't that just sort of show the futility of that kind of an action?
Well, that's why I said earlier I don't agree with normative statements at all, because I don't think it's possible to communicate with somebody from a different fundamental viewpoint.
So we can never come to that kind of agreement that you're saying we can come to if we're all coming to different sorts of
within normative frameworks. That's what I feel like. Yes, that's why I say, and I need to rethink this maybe because Nick challenged me on this, but that's why before what I would have said is I describe people as trying to fulfill a set of preferences. If there is some goal that I want to achieve, the easiest way for me to achieve that goal is to fulfill as many people's preferences as possible. So for instance, if I have a friend, it's actually in my self-interest to fulfill my preferences to fulfill their preferences as well, because doing that fulfills mine ultimately, right? That's how I would describe it. But I would never ascribe good or evil to any of these acts, or preferable or non-preferable, unless I'm talking about satisfying descriptively like my own preferences.
This sounds like just a really, really messed up version of virtue ethics.
No, that's dumb shit. Don't ever call me a virtue ethicist, okay? I speak in preferences. I don't appeal to some abstract bullshit-ass mountain of fucking virtues that we can send fucking Paul Bunyan in to dig them out, okay? Fuck that. I don't believe in that shit, okay? I just think that as biological entities, descriptively speaking, we have a certain set of preferences, and that as a biological entity, I can set out in ways to fulfill these, and generally the best way to do it is to fulfill others as well. That's, yeah.
Okay. So wait, is the thought, so why do all preferences in your mind have equal normative value?
All preferences of my own preferences, or
well, you said it's in your own interest as well to realize the preferences of others. So presumably you're equally valuing the preferences of others.
No. It's preferences all the way down, my dude. I have my set of preferences ultimately, and the best way to fulfill those preferences is to fulfill other people's preferences generally. That's just a descriptive statement. Because it is. So as a human, I can't exist on my own. I need to go to the grocery store to buy food. I need to interact with other humans because we're social creatures, and that increases the dopamine or serotonin levels in my brain. I need to interact with other people to have them drive me places, or to play games with them because I need a partner to play duos in a game. Yeah.
Okay. So, but don't you also recognize that insofar as you live in a society where, yes, you're cooperating with other people, you're also working to undermine certain projects in doing all of those things, right? So, or not all of them. I want to be a little careful there. But, for instance, I'm trying to think of
I can give you a really good example. Let's say that climate change is something that will only have an impact on the planet 100 years from now and will completely destroy the planet, but it won't have any impact up until that point. That's something that would be very, very hard to ever get somebody like me interested in, or impossible, actually.
Well, you don't think that people in the future have preferences that you should
I don't care
satisfy?
about they don't affect my preferences now, so I wouldn't care about them. So descriptively, once I'm dead, I don't care about any other, future person's preferences.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I can't really, so it doesn't seem like I can really challenge the idea that...
Yeah, because I'm one step away from JHC in terms of being ultimately skeptical.
So do you recognize, all right, this is getting into some Humean territory maybe, but do you recognize emotions as having some kind of role in the creation of moral intuitions?
If by moral intuitions, I'm going to sound like the non-cognitivist here, but if by moral intuitions you mean certain preferences for certain actions, and if by emotions you mean certain brain states, then yes, I would acknowledge that there are certain states in the brain that make certain actions preferable to other actions. Yes.
Okay, so then to apply that, would it be fair to say that even if you do not directly benefit in a material way from an action, you can still benefit from realizing the empathy that you feel for another person?
Correct. Yes. And this was Deck's next challenge to me, is that by calling everything egoist, I'm being a little bit too reductionist, and that I could recognize a moral system that rests on top of this. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that, like, so for instance, like, I make sacrifices for my child, even though it's a sacrifice for me. It's money every month, it's time or whatever, but I still do it because of the empathy that I feel for my kid. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So insofar, right. I'm trying to grapple with the particular claim that you make, that you can't say that certain actions are right or wrong. Is that, I don't want to mischaracterize.
Yeah, so my claim would be, let's say, so I believe that I should maximize my preferences, and I believe that I should do, the way that I maximize my preferences is by being social, right, and being a normal human, right, generally. I'm going to line up a lot with, like, an altruist. Let's say somebody else comes and says, my actual preference is to murder as many...
Can I just say...
Wait,
like,
wait, can I finish? Or hurry up.
Well, because I don't really know if I should... I'm not really actually sure what to do on mine, because I just actually asked Rawls, who's in our call earlier, and I literally told him. He says, I mean, even if it was earlier, what can you say to someone who thinks it isn't possible to know whether killing Jews is bad, other than fuck off? So
right.
Wait,
like,
okay, wait. I didn't hear any of that. I'm sorry. I was reading Ask Yourself.
Repeat,
Holy fuck, Isaac is so fucking stupid. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, even if it was earlier, what can you say to someone who thinks it isn't possible?
Oh, that's exactly.
Let
me finish. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Nothing. So let's say that my preference is
to
to satisfy.
Let me continue.
No. Can I just give my example, because it's probably hitting the exact same thing you're getting to. Okay, my preference is I try to maximize my preferences generally by being a social person. Altruism generally gets me there, but I'm doing this ultimately to maximize my preferences. Let's say somebody else comes and says, well, my preference is to rape and murder as many people as possible. I don't think I have a normative or moral standing to say I ought value mine more than yours, or that mine are better than yours. I just have mine and you just have yours, and it's in my best interest to eliminate that person. That's all I would say. I would never say that one is better or preferable to the other.
You've foregone all rationality. You've foregone everything. You've foregone questions of meaning, questions of truth. You've foregone all of it once you've acknowledged that we can't know one thing over another. It's all gone.
Well, once you can't know a moral truth. Sorry.
Maybe there's a distinction that should be drawn here.
Sure.
Because there's a distinction between saying we can know with a capital K which one is right, quote unquote, but we can still provide arguments against having those particular worldviews.
Well, no, because Rem is saying Rem's epistemic beliefs are founded or are grounded in normative claims, and he says that if I reject all normative claims, that I'm an epistemic anti-realist by definition, which I don't agree with necessarily.
But how do you not disagree? How do you?
Because
not
I feel like the type of normative statements you're making are different than the type of normative statements that I'm making.
You have said this many
I
times.
know, and we'll
You've
never
been
agree.
able to articulate it.
Well, I can. I don't think that, for instance, saying that, like...
In what way do those norms differ from each other?
Saying that I have a priori beliefs about certain logical truths, I don't think that to value those truths is the same type of moral statement as saying I ought not murder someone. I feel
why? I'm asking you why, rather than appealing to
I don't fucking know why. It just feels a lot fucking different.
Right, exactly.
Because some of these are a priori truths.
Different.
Because some of these are a priori truths that every single human seems to be endowed with, that are necessary for anything in the universe to function.
You're going for feels.
I'm not. I'm telling you, things like contradiction and identity are necessary. 1 equals 1, and 1 cannot equal 2. These are necessary laws of identity.
Why?
Because the universe says so. I don't know. Oh, why are they different?
Why does the universe say
because
so?
Because I think there's a difference between the a priori truths that I have that seem to be truths of the universe.
Destiny, why?
Because these a priori truths are necessary for me to understand the world and for the world and universe to function. No, saying that murder is wrong is not the same type of a priori assumption.
Oh, why?
Because it's not. It just isn't. Descriptively, it's not.
Destiny, I can save you. All you need to do is falsify the Christian God.
Well, sure, but this is why I am the ultimate skeptic, because at the end of the day, I'll say, well, yeah, I can't really do that. I can't justify modus ponens or justify any law of identity or justify any of that shit. It's not, I would say arguably it's all...
Come back, Destiny. You've gone down the cave. You need to come out. You gotta see the light. Destiny. We lost you. We lost you in a matter of 2 hours.
It was the shrooms, my dude. I'm sorry.
He was always gone.
It was the
No,
shrooms.
but like 4 hours ago, you're like, oh yeah, epistemic norms. Fuck yeah, Nick. I can really get on with this. And now you're like, fucking killing Jews is just, we can't know if that's bad.
I can agree with epistemic norms. I just don't agree that one set of norms is better than another. That's all I'm saying.
What is agreement consist in?
Doesn't Destiny's view just sort of collapse into solipsism?
Yeah,
sure.
No, it collapses into nihilism.
Not
the
well.
goth cunning
No,
kind.
it's existentialism because I choose. I make a choice. The difference between the nihilist and existentialist, I make a choice to get out of the nihilist pit. Okay, I could sit here.
Even Nietzsche was not a complete nihilist.
Listen,
he was not a nihilist about epistemic norms.
All I say is that, and Next seemed to agree with me. You guys are giving me real mean labels right now, but Next seemed to agree with my general points, is that I don't think if I have a set of norms and another person has a set of norms, I don't think I could ever argue who is correct in their set of norms, ever. But I can assume that mine are correct, and I can construct systems from there and make logically true and internally consistent statements from there. Yeah.
So you know how scientists accuse philosophers of just doing feels, and we've gotten away from reals. You are the prime case of this belief, because if we go to the very
you're literally being Darth Dawkins right now. You're saying that if I cannot ground out some like 100% valid presupposition that every statement I make necessarily is false beyond that.
Right now, you're telling me I have to provide justification for my beliefs?
Okay, fine. Justify the law of identity. Go.
We can know that the law of identity is necessarily true.
How?
Because otherwise, okay.
Wait. Because otherwise, why do you care about that otherwise?
Because if you try to argue against the law of identity, you are in fact using the very thing you're trying to refute.
So who cares?
Okay, so again, you are.
No, who cares? Tell me. Why does it matter if I use the very thing I'm arguing against and the thing I'm arguing against? Why does that matter?
Destiny, I've said to you many times that it is impossible to defeat the ultimate skeptic. How many times? And Next said that to you earlier. So is Rawls. We've all acknowledged this.
Okay, so you acknowledge then that your grounding is unjustified.
But I'm not saying that. No. It's
what do you mean? You couldn't justify it to me.
Because, motherfucker, justification is established within a set of epistemic norms that you have forfeited. Justification occurs within.
Yes. So you are creating.
System.
You're creating your own verification system.
God. Destiny, you're
literally creating the system by which you verify the authenticity of your own system. And if I push you on everything, ultimately you're going to be reduced to the same grounds that I am, where you go, I'm just
absolutely everything to the. Okay.
That's the point. We agree then. Yeah, we agree. That's the point.
No, but that doesn't mean
this is a very compelling argument that nobody should study philosophy.
No, I reject this. I reject Rem. The statement that I make, which is I think the one that JC, the statement that I would make is that I understand that I ultimately have no justification for this. However, like 99% of people can agree with these fundamental a priori truths. Let's just fucking work with there. Forget fucking trying to justify any of that. I don't need any sort of epistemic or meta-epistemic reason to justify that. I just fucking assume it to be true and fucking move on from there. And then let's have a conversation. When we have a conversation on whether or not we ought to murder or not murder someone else, I don't necessarily believe that this needs to reduce into a conversation about what we can know is true. I don't necessarily believe that. That's why Next said that I am kind of a sophomore realist.
Look. So for example, like Rawls just said, of course you can evaluate moral claims. Watch. Killing Jews is bad because Jews generally like to live, and you're fucking killing them. I think that really gets.
Hold on! You just did the thing that Hume's made fun of. You just snuck in an ought from a bunch of is statements. You said Jews prefer to live, Nazis could kill Jews, therefore you ought not kill. You just snuck in an ought from is. What?
It was a joke.
Okay.
It was a joke. It was not. I was not actually positing a philosophical argument there.
Just trolling, by the way.
So I don't know if I can really sit here and talk, because it's like Nick said, it is not worth my time. You know, as someone who does study philosophy, it is not worth my time sitting here and talking to an ultimate skeptic.
I agree. That's why I don't sit here and have conversations about my ultimate skepticism. I think it's beyond fucking stupid. It's a huge waste of time. So instead, I would assume a moral system, and then I'll discuss it from within that context. Because talking to anything about ultimate skepticism is a total fucking waste of time.
But again, if someone were here and if someone sat here and tried to defend the Holocaust, there would be no way for you to justify your view over mine.
Of course I can. I would do it within whatever moral framework we agree to talk in.
But I said if we push it to the very boundary, there is
but that's
no
what you're
way.
describing is It's a bad
right,
thing.
hey,
Listen, no,
hang
because
on.
that's like
How's
saying
it a bad thing?
no, because that's like saying, listen, okay, I want to have a discussion with you on who is a better wizard, Harry or Severus Snape, Harry Potter or Severus Snape. Let's go. And then if you were to constantly go, well, Harry Potter's not real, Harry Potter's not real, well, of course it's not real. Does that mean we can't have the conversation?
Destiny, believe it or not.
No,
I don't
answer the
think questions
question.
of whether or not they Holocaust. I don't
No,
think it's
you
on
have
the
to
same
answer
level
the
as whether or not
question.
wizard-
Can we
I don't
have a
understand
discussion?
The question.
Okay, the
I don't
question
even
is,
understand
within the
question.
framework of the Harry Potter universe, could we have a discussion on which wizard is the most powerful wizard?
No, because questions of framework in itself presuppose some sort of objective a priori understanding.
Okay, so then
of
you're
epistemic
literal.
norms.
You have AIDS of the brain if you believe that. So then no conversation. So that means you're just telling me that no hypothetical conversation about fiction could ever
No.
take place?
No, because ultimately,
No,
if
wait.
you're
I want you to answer that
acknowledging-
question. Can any hypothetical conversation about fiction ever take place? So, for instance, could
yes,
Superman
I'm not
punch
understanding
Batman?
what you're trying to derive
Sure.
from this question.
Well, my question is, could Superman beat Batman in a fight? Is this something that I could have
No,
an
can you
actual?
explain to me what you're trying to get at here?
What I'm trying to get at is that even though these are fictional, we can still have conversations pertaining to them. Much the same way that if I acknowledge that your morality is fictitious, I could still have conversations about said morality. I don't need to accept morality as an absolute truth in order to apply it or understand it or have discussions about it.
Wait, Miriam, what were you going to say?
I was, honestly, I sort of lost my train of thought. I was going to argue that Destiny's worldview, I think this was cut because I misunderstood what he was saying ultimately, but I was going to say that his egotistical worldview could be used as a justification for understanding other people. So if you were to understand everyone as being ultimately egotistical like Destiny, then you could still use that to derive a quote-unquote true moral paradigm. Namely, Rawlsianism. All roads lead back to Rawls. But I think even Destiny would deny that.
No, I don't think I necessarily would. I would probably, because you could probably stack enough biological descriptive claims up that I would believe it. So for instance, if we took 10 people, I could probably describe, oh God, like Sam Harris, I might be able to describe like an ultimate brain state or whatever that would be ultimately happy, and that there might be like one set of rules, maybe even categorical imperatives. I don't know if this is Kantian, but there might actually be like one set of rules that consistently delivers people to this end product. And maybe you would argue that like, well, okay, well, if we accept epistemicism, that's a real word, right?
No.
I don't think so.
You mean
No,
realism?
Epistemology. I'm sorry. Epistemology. If we accept epistemology as being true, if we accept that we can build rational statements, if we accept that, then we can actually construct what would be the most quote-unquote correct moral system. Sure. And it would be correct insofar as it is fulfilling the egoist obligations, but we can recognize there is no reason really why we ought to fulfill those obligations. But if we want to, which I think that every individual human is probably compelled to, if we believe that we want to, then we can go ahead and build those claims up.
I mean, all right. I don't know.
Cool.
You
All right.
You can take it if you want,
Oh,
but
No, he said his all right means he agrees with me.
I'm taking a backseat.
I don't know if I agree.
I've said this before.
Yeah.
Look, your line of thinking, Destiny, as the ultimate skeptic, I've said this. There's nothing I can do for you. It's literally beyond help. I cannot argue with you philosophically. It's just not possible. Okay, and I know you can challenge me all you like, and I can literally say, like, I have nothing to say to this. And this is what every single philosopher is going to say to you. But recognize what your sort of view ultimately entails. Because you recognize the consequences of your view, correct?
No, that's the consequences that you ascribe my view. I reject those.
You reject even an objective theory of meaning. So all of our words here are, I can't say anything.
No,
Again,
because
we're
I don't think
outside
I
of this
need
bubble.
to subscribe to
Look,
an objective view in order to
you can't even say anything. So imagine, look, I just.
But I still am, aren't I?
Hold on. Let me speak here. It's hard for me to really communicate to people who haven't really studied the literature, because I don't know if people realize it. Just like, this is the most extreme possible view you can have ever. It's like, and it's so.
That's why it's called the ultimate skeptic.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so absurd that we can't actually say anything about it. Like, I literally cannot. Look, I can't even say that. Do you know what I mean? We get into the statement of prescribing anything to this view becomes absolutely absurd. Even that statement I just made about it. Because as soon as we forego with a theory of meaning, all of our words become meaningless. Pardon what you said?
I said absurd in relation to what? Because we still are, as a matter of fact, able to communicate, even if in theory it's all nonsense.
Well, of course, but according to the ultimate skeptic, our conventions and a community of epistemic agents doesn't fucking matter. You throw everything out, absolutely everything imaginable. You throw it completely out.
I think that just because you throw out the justifications for them doesn't necessarily mean you throw out the things themselves.
Oh, excuse me?
Just because you throw out the justification for something doesn't necessarily mean that you throw out the thing itself.
So if we have two competing theories of meaning that say the exact opposite thing, right?
You pick whichever one fulfills your preference. It's instrumentalism, my friend.
Even that statement requires a theory of meaning that I might not.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't require. I don't require a theory of meaning to pick between two instruments that I think can better fulfill my preferences.
No. You see, what you're trying to argue to me here makes no sense because a theory of meaning is not objective. Do you not understand? It extends to everything. It extends to truth, logic, justification, meaning, ability to communicate, talk about absolutely anything. It goes out the window, Destiny. That's why it's so absurd. It throws out rational discourse. It throws out discourse in itself. It throws out communication. This is why it's so absurd. And this is why the response to this is just fuck off. That is literally the absurd.
And I agree. If I was to ever have a conversation about these types of topics, I don't think that it's a conversation that's worth engaging in. And I don't do it because I think.
What the fuck are you doing here, Destiny?
Because I don't think every single conversation, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong in this, magnanimum, okay? I don't think that every single conversation has to be grounded in your epistemic beliefs.
I don't think I'm equipped to answer that
Fuck
question.
yeah.
Wait, sorry, you're trying to say not every grounding is in itself epistemic, Destiny.
So what I'm saying is that two people can have a conversation on whether or not abortion is right or wrong, and that doesn't have to ultimately ground out in epistemic realism or anti-realism or theories of truth.
What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, here's a question. When two people have a conversation about abortion, do you think that more often than not these do ground out in their epistemic belief systems, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe because you're in philosophy school, everybody does, but from what I see, like on the news and shit, I haven't seen like a politician get on and be like, I'm going to talk about why correspondence theory is bad, and my epistemic theory is going to lead us to abortion, like logically.
I don't turn on Fox News to determine what are the good epistemic norms that we should follow. I don't do that, Destiny. Maybe you do, but I'm
not saying whether or not, first of all, I don't believe in there is a good or bad episode. First of all, I reject your terminology. Secondly, it's not about whether or not there is a good or bad one to follow. It's whether or not certain conversations can take place without having decided what your epistemic foundation is.
No, Destiny, he's not, or sorry, Knockout Panda, Destiny is not trolling here. Destiny is not trolling, and I'm very sad. I'm disheartened. I feel like I've spent all this time. I love you too, Destiny. It just gets really.
Magnanimum. What do I fuck up in? Help Rem.
Do you disagree with anything I've said, Magnanimum?
I think you both are sort of agreeing implicitly on where you ultimately want to go, which is that we're ultimately still trying to allow for a paradigm that can have discussions of things like morality, of things like politics, things that impact the experiences of everyday people. That's what we're ultimately interested in.
Yes.
That's why philosophy is ultimately meaningful.
But Destiny can't justify that.
Yes, that's the difference between me and you. The difference is I'll say mine ultimately have no justification.
You throw out rationality.
No, that doesn't mean you throw out all rationality, because I can still make rational statements within a system that's unjustified. Much the same way that I could describe fictional events without it being real.
Are you skeptical of the language that you're using?
I'm skeptical that it exists naturally in the universe or whatever, sure.
Well, no. Like, because you can have mind dependent. Are you skeptical of all the language
I can be skeptical of a lot of things. For instance, I'm skeptical that you exist as a person. I'm skeptical that...
No. Can you answer my question? Are you skeptical that the words you're using right now have any sort of meaning whatsoever?
What do you need to break down all of these things. No, wait. No, let's go with that question. Okay, here. Let's type this out. Are you skeptical that the words you speak have meaning? That's your sentence, right?
Sure.
Okay, so let me...
So this is getting into some Wittgenstein stuff, which is...
Well, this is what I study philosophy of language, which is why this is most frustrating for me, because I can't invoke a lot of the, like the context principle and whatnot to talk about a lot of this stuff, because it gets really complex and I can't.
I mean, you could probably... Are you a descriptivist? Because that's probably pretty digestible.
I'm not a descriptivist.
All right, well, fuck. That's probably the most digestible way that you could solve philosophy of language, but sure. Okay.
Yeah. Destiny's typing like a Madman.
I'm just trying to state this question as clearly as possible, okay?
Who keeps killing me?
Whoa, somebody in the chat says descriptivists are worse than Nazis. Ooh,
Wow.
damn.
Chad, I love you.
Chat is where the real philosophy takes place. We're just the posers.
Chad, I love you. I hope you've been
Okay,
able to bear
so
my yelling.
you said, are you skeptical that the words you speak have meaning, okay? So how I would phrase that sentence to answer it properly is I would agree with it up until the caps lock part at the end.
Are you the entity that...
I have to be clear with my language here.
Holy shit.
Sorry, okay. Are you the entity that exists as Stephen, skeptical that the words use have meaning, and by meaning I mean that they map onto we mutually share that actually exist in an independent and physical world that we can know about?
So the answer to this would be no.
That sentence itself.
Yeah, so I would say yes, I am skeptical of this unless you delete the part at the end.
But no, but are you skeptical of you being skeptical?
Sure.
Are you skeptical of you being skeptical of you being
Yeah,
skeptical?
just like meta. Sure, yeah. Sure.
So you don't see how this derives into absurdity and how it undermines itself. This is what
Wait.
meant when he said...
Wait. Why should I value absurdity?
Because the game of doubt itself presupposes certainty.
Why does it have to? You're already assuming some sort of logical foundation to say that something must presuppose another thing. Why should I buy into that logical...
And you've jumped off the diving board again.
I know, but that's where we're at. So why can't we just forget about all of this and move on?
I'm not really being serious because I know that I've talked to people of this position so many times.
Okay,
I've stayed
how about
with you here longer than I have any other.
You could bring back Neck tomorrow, and then we could sort this out. How
No,
about
Neck is not going to say anything different. Neck will literally come on here for 5 seconds and tell you to fuck off and then leave.
No, I think there's a... Oh my god, we should make predictions about what he'll say, and we'll see what he says. Because I predict Neck will say is Neck will say, this is my prediction of what he'll say. He'll say
Neck is going to defend your view.
No, I think Neck is going to say his view. Neck is going to say Destiny has a view here that is ultimately skeptical and not really worth considering. But I think that we don't have to consider that, and we can move on and consider more interesting things that Destiny is capable of considering. I think that's what he'll say.
I'm not saying that we can never have a rational discourse.
No, you absolutely are. You can't walk back from that now. You were saying...
That's...
I'm saying that ultimately...
Wait, hold on. Magnanimum. You agree that is what he was saying earlier, right?
Right. It seems like... So the major nuggets of truth that each of you are saying is, Rem, you're correct in saying that the worldview that...
I misspoke.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, no. Hold on.
About...
You didn't misspeak because you literally were saying earlier, like, then none of my words should make sense to you or anything I say should make sense.
Yeah, when we get to... because look, if I push you far enough up the ladder, you won't be able to provide, a certain level of justification without cashing out.
Of course, yeah.
Some sort of set of epistemic norms.
Sure.
And you're, of course, throwing these out. But of course, just on the level of basic conversation, we can engage in conversation, at least from mine.
Wait, that was my whole earlier argument, that even without hashing out
Wait.
Go ahead.
Ram, what is the upshot of your problem with Destiny's worldview, insofar as you accept the notion that he can still have discussions outside of sort of the epistemic bedrock foundation here?
Actually, no. I think I defend my claim, and I think that Neck will agree with me. I don't think that he'll say that you can have a rational conversation. No, okay,
but he can't because we already have had a rational conversation, and I have.
No, but I don't think you believe what you believe.
Oh,
right now.
Okay.
So I think if he knows the position that you currently hold, I do not think he will say that you guys will be having a rational conversation. That is my prediction.
Okay.
What is involved in having a rational conversation under that worldview?
Apparently sharing epistemic norms is.
Yes, that is correct.
It seems like people... So then do people who have just never been educated on what an epistemic norm even is, are they all just speaking nonsense?
That was my earlier argument, that when people debate abortion, for instance, they don't get into conversation about epistemology.
They are taught implicit... And this is why I think someone will call you a liar. Like, you are a liar. Because you're saying that you don't have these epistemic norms, but you do.
No, I do have these epistemic norms. I just don't claim I could justify them.
Right, so Wait, this is Wittgenstein's entire point, is that as opposed to the contract... No. This is against you, Rem, I'm pretty sure. The whole alternative to the whole mental contract that we have behind language is our communities of language, where by speaking to one another and implicitly teaching one another epistemic norms, we are a community that has accepted norms, but those norms aren't necessarily justified. They just exist as a functional purpose.
Right. No,
this Liechtenstein guy, man, he sounds real smart. Throw me his.
You need a normative foundation there. So my issue arises when you're starting to posit moral anti-realism, because I don't think that's compatible with having a community of people with epistemic norms. Because again, like I've said, which Destiny clearly rejects, norms are, it's a normative web. Okay. Norms are not just cashed out in certain areas of discourse. It's completely universal. That is what I hold.
I'm not sure what you mean by it being completely universal. So you think that unless I accept the notion that there is ultimate grounding for epistemic norms, then epistemic norms can't exist even in a functional purpose?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Absolutely. Because talking about functional purpose itself requires some sort of epistemic norm to even discuss such a thing.
Which presupposes morality. This is why and this is what I disagree with.
This is what I got a lot of this stuff from Neck. Neck is the one who guided me on this path. Because I was fiddling a little bit with instrumentalism and everything being normative. And then I jumped on to Husserl, and I believe that there was a theoretical foundation. And now I'm a little bit lost in the bushes of figuring out sort of a lot of these technicalities. But I do know for certain that there must be a normative foundation. Absolutely.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you think that we can know that there exists such a foundation without knowing what that foundation might consist in?
Right, and that is a question that I've said on here before, and that's why I've never really given a positive account of what these epistemic norms would be. It's an entirely negative philosophy. That is what
you're admitting. Hang on, you're admitting then that without knowing the foundation of
no. I'm not here saying.
All you're saying is that there exists a foundation. But if your original argument was that you can't have even functional epistemic norms without accepting bedrock epistemic norms, then it seems like you're admitting that you don't have those bedrock epistemic norms. So you don't know where it is.
All I have said is that it's an entirely negative philosophy, and I'm not comfortable enough in my philosophical training to give you a set of epistemic norms. I'm sure that there are certain ones that you could be positive, but I'm not confident enough to defend them. And that is an appeal. You would have to talk to someone like Neck to get those answers. And if you want to see that as a cop-out, well, sure. But I mean, I'm not a PhD student, right? So
yeah,
and I think these are the toughest questions in philosophy as well.
Right. So, he didn't seem to have problems. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, this is I think an important point. Insofar as they are the toughest questions, you are also arguing that they are the ones that must be answered before anything else. And yet, to this day, they still have yet to be answered. And yet society continues to move onwards. So if we're just looking towards sort of an empirical justification for why epistemic norms can exist for a functional purpose, it would seem like the fact that society is able to exist today, that we are able to communicate today, even without those bedrock epistemic norms being established, you can't.
Are you a moral anti-realist now?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so that's what this conversation has done to you, Mr. Kantian man. You are now questioning the validity of epistemic.
I'm bringing him over. Oh, feels good.
You're painting the youth of our nation.
I came into this conversation without any kind of preconceived understanding.
Here, let me see if I can say this thought experiment, this hypothetical. Okay, I exist on a floating.
Excuse me. I need things to be from your own experience.
I exist on a floating island in space. Okay, this floating island. Okay, I believe that on the bottom of this rock, okay, that there is written, we should build things to be as blue and beautiful as possible, and everything blue is beautiful. I believe that. I can't fucking prove it. However, I can still build buildings that are blue. I can still talk about the best way to make things that are blue. I can innovate and iterate on design processes that make things blue and more blue, and everything can be blue. And I can do all of this while assuming that on the bottom of this island, there is a rule written that says things that are beautiful and good are things that are blue. Even if I never read those words or glimpse those words, I could just assume it to be true, and I might even be wrong. In fact, That might not even exist on the bottom of the island at all. I can never know about it because it's in an area that is inaccessible to me as a human. But I could still live my life assuming that statement is true and then build from there. Could I not?
That seems like a question directed at Rem.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Well, no, well, you would, I think from what you said earlier, you would agree, well, of course we could. We could still build things that are blue even without knowing. And that's my thing. I would say that we can't know about morality. It's just not a question. I don't even know if these answers are found anywhere, if these even exist.
But,
that as humans, we can't know about morality. But we could still make moral statements based on systems that we, with no good justification, construct.
Sorry, my
but
thing
Destiny,
cut out. I missed
the
last
way,
minute and a half.
So, well, rather than having Destiny repeat all this, I just want to answer this real quick.
Sure.
When you say we can't know morality, I think that's a very misleading statement.
I'm sure.
The way
So when
you
I say,
mean it,
when I say I can't know about that, I mean that in like a, maybe that's like a meta-ethical statement I mean to make. Like, we can't know about the nature of morality, but we could make moral statements insofar as they are constrained and within some arbitrary system that we create without justification.
No, because look, the content of hypothetical statements in itself require a theoretical foundation, like a notion of truth. Even talk about hypotheticals requires some sort of grounding.
But this is where we
how do
appeal
you
to the
test that
empirical.
out?
This is where we appeal to the empirical
But how
and
can
say,
you appeal to the empirical?
because we do this. It is demonstrated that we do this every day without having them empirically, without having them epistemologically grounded.
How can you say that?
Because it
without any
happens.
justification?
It just does. It's descriptively
How do
true.
you know it happens? How do you know it's not all an illusion, Destiny?
So here's a question. Do you think that we weren't... Okay, here's a question. Before philosophers began their investigations of epistemology, was nobody making any true statement ever in their entire life?
No, because that's a
wait,
good
hang
question.
on. It seems like Hume solved this problem hundreds of years ago. Right? Hume's whole argument was that, yes, we can make all of these absurd, ridiculous arguments about skepticism, but we're still going to get out of bed. We're still going to go to work. We're still going to have conversations with one another. That's his whole point, right? So I think, forget what I said about all roads leading to Rawls. It seems like now all roads are leading to Hume. Where it seems like even though we do philosophy, it's still, there's a disconnect between what in theory we need and what in practice we need.
Or check.
I think Rem is making voodoo dolls of us, Destiny. I'm a little nervous.
No. I'm intrigued by the question of whether or not I would say no. I don't think we did make true statements.
So, but wait. Okay, no, wait. Because now, you've been attacking me for hours. Now I'm going in on you. I want you to bite the bullet in this. You're going to tell me that before philosophers began their investigations into epistemology, no human prior to that point had made any true statements.
Oh, no. I don't think you have to be consciously aware of the truth of a statement, and that'd be absurd. That would mean that every single I
so before the study. So before the study.
Okay, no, but you're presupposing foundationalism again here, right? That's ultimately what the issue is here, because we can have a coherent system where things are true in virtue of them, fitting into this sort of holistic web.
I feel like, okay, I'm gonna disagree with all of this, but.
That's because you're a dirty correspondence foundationalist. But an interesting question would be that before the advent of language itself, was there any notion of truth? That's an interesting question. That my current investigation in philosophy, to anyone that, is whether or not we understand things to be the case through our use of language. Like, when I say the table is red, do we know that there exists a table because of its use in our language, or do we structure our language around around the world?
Here's a question: If I start beginning to talk about, do you believe that we can gain knowledge about objects themselves?
Like, that's really
loaded. So let's say that I have a table and I say that the table is, and I describe some property of the table. Do you believe that I can truly understand or know something about the physical nature of that object independent of myself? Is that possible to gain that information?
This is getting at like the Kantian transcendental idealism sort of thing.
Because for me, my answer here is a very easy no, that we cannot truly know anything about the physical world, that I can only surmise some properties about it, maybe, if my sense data is conveying some properties of it, but I can't truly know anything about a physical object.
So he deviates from Kant then.
But what is knowledge in itself consist in? What are the requirements for having?
The requirements for knowledge are they seem to be some a priori truths that we're born with, and then our observations are sense data, and that we use that, and then we build everything from there.
Well, so because I am a scientific anti-realist, for example, and so, but I think that certain phenomena, and this becomes an issue of almost measurement of what is the level of certainty required to say that something is the case, right?
Well, wait. When you say something is the case, you mean like something is an existing physical object?
Yes.
Oh, no. So I would say we can't speak in levels of certainty. We can't know about that at all. Not at all in any size, shape, or form. You can't even speak to an approximation. There's no way that you...
But hold on. I just want to say we know for certain that, certain objects exist, as someone mentioned.
No, we don't. Wait, what do you mean? Wait. What do you mean by objects?
We know that there is something in it. We just don't know. We can't say anything about the object except for the case that, there is something there.
I don't think. How could you possibly know that?
Because how else could we come to interpret anything if there wasn't something that is the case? Like, I understand everything could be a total simulation, but there still has to be something out there, right?
No, there doesn't have to be.
What? How?
Because there doesn't have to be, because you can't provide a justification for that, because you gather everything.
Okay, hold on. I'm tired of talking about this total skepticism. I'm done. Enough.
All I'm trying to do is prove that you and me are on the same ground so that we can hold hands as brothers and walk away from this skepticism into the world of philosophy, leaving this bullshit behind us. That's all I want to do.
Okay. Well, what consequences will that...
None! There are no bad consequences!
Listen, you're both going to, implode unless this comes to an end. I think this conversation ended a little while ago when Ren admitted that Destiny can have... Oh, God.
Destiny, are there objective epistemic norms? Objective in that everyone must follow them.
Give me an example of that.
Principle of fucking contradiction.
When you say must, what do you mean by that?
It is literally impossible for someone to engage in a discourse without following.
For humans to have conversations with one another, I would say there are necessary a priori truths for that to occur. Yes, I would agree with that. Sure.
We are holding hands right now.
Okay.
We're walking
away.
Sunset.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
All right, that's good.
Fuck that shit. Okay. And fuck you if you think that. Whatever. No, sorry. I can't end it with saying fuck you. That's not.
Okay, thanks.
That is epistemic. But for going
you
back
can't
to...
end it with saying fuck. Is that like an axiom of yours, or?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can't end it. I can't say let's walk into the sunset, but also fuck you. I don't know. I think that's
okay.
a bit much. But talking about knowing things in themselves, how could you explain? For example, knowledge in itself.
I think you're turning back. How do I keep him? You're turning back. We're leaving. We left that place.
What are you talking about?
Let's talk about the world of real things that we all believe that things are real.
So I'm saying, but we know things that must exist.
Well, it sounds like you're referring to the dark place that we just left, Ram. I don't want to talk about that place.
Basic Descartes 101 shit, right? I think so. There is some thinking thing.
Yeah. So some entity exists. I call myself that entity, and I'm gathering data about something, or some sort of data is being conveyed to me, being my senses via my senses.
And taking this contextualist David Lewis route, we obviously know, there's always this skeptical possibility that I'm just in a simulation.
You're hand waving that, but you have no justification for it. You're begging the question so hard. You're saying we could be in a simulation. Yeah, no, we actually could be, and that is just as justified as your position that we're not.
Destiny, I thought we left that place. What happened to
You're the one that just walked back to it. You're running back to it. Screaming at me.
What do you want me to say that it's not going to walk back?
Let's talk about morals. Let's talk about
Desi,
what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? No, I don't.
Why do you not play cribbage?
I don't know, because it's fucking... I've never even heard it. Honestly, I don't know what the fuck cribbage is. That's
all right. You know what? I figured this out. What
What?
we're gonna do is you two are going to play chess, and the winner determines
Okay,
whether or not.
let's fucking do it.
1 plus
Realism
1.
and
Make it.
realism
Host
is
it.
true.
Light chess. 1 plus 1.
I can't do like the blitz thing. I'm not good at that. We just have to do classic, okay? Light chess, is it?
Yeah.
The fate of all philosophy is on your shoulders, so play well.
Oh, okay. Create game. Play with a friend.
You got to do 1 plus 1. I can't do the long term. Okay. I
don't know
I
what
live
1
in
plus 1 is.
You got to set it to 1 minute to go.
Fuck you, I'll be fast. I'm not gonna.
No, I need a time limit.
I can't do. I haven't played chess in like 5 years.
Listen to me, okay? We
You
are
listen to
all
me.
on a.
We
We're
have the
marching
epicenter
inevitably
storm.
towards our death, okay? Every second the clock ticks is another second earlier to your
up.
demise. We are.
You
You cannot
goddamn
avoid
hate
this.
this,
You
dude.
cannot ask us
Click
to
the
wait,
link.
okay? Time waits for no mortal. All right. So
Like the link.
Also, wait, time is just a construct that we can't prove. So, Rem, we don't actually know that you have 5 years.
Just click the goddamn link.
No.
Destiny.
hold on. How do I create a game? Okay, play with a friend.
God damn it.
Okay, are you ready? I'm gonna send you a link. You gotta join fast. So, oh wait, never mind. Hold on.
Oh my god. Well, just send it in the Discord.
Yep. Here it is. Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. I'm okay. What is this? Okay. I haven't played this in years.
Whew.
Okay.
Wait, who's white, who's black?
I'm black. Do you see the time limit?
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable.
Go. I moved the wrong piece.
Real quick moves.
Ah! Ah! Ah!
Oh shit.
Wait, oh
I-
my god, that's a good move. for
No,
Rem.
it was actually really bad for me. Oh my god. I can't believe you let me get away with that.
Whoa.
Ah!
Wait, why didn't
Oh
you
no! That was bad!
I don't.
Rem, buddy, you're letting philosophy down here.
Oh wait, it's my turn. Oh fuck, it's my turn. Oh, I don't know. Ah, that was bad. That was really bad. That was so bad. This is stressful. I don't like this. Ah, shit.
Maybe-
Don't do that. That's rude.
Don't
will
help
make it
him.
a
Don't
2-3.
help him.
Oh, no. Please, don't. I'll do anything. Don't take it.
God damn it. What are you doing?
Stop. Let me win. Let me win. Ah, what do I do? I do that.
Whew, that was a good move.
Oh, don't. Stop. Stop it. Oh, shit. Fuck. What's the time? Oh, fuck. Oh,
Your
shit.
bishop. Look at your bishop.
I'm doing that.
Don't help him.
Oh, fuck. I fucked up.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Wait,
you
these are
saw
like
what I was gonna
godlike moves, dude. Oh my god.
Stop. Don't do that. Wait. No. What do I do? Oh, that was not good. I don't know why I did that. That was stupid.
No, actually, it wasn't as bad as you think.
And then I do this. No, I do
Knight.
this.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, fuck. Oh, oh,
No, that's real bad.
oh, oh, wait, oh. No, why did I do? What was that good? Oh, fuck. Wait. Oh, fuck.
No, don't panic.
No, stop. Don't do that. Stop that. Oh.
Okay,
Fuck.
I think I feel more comfortable now.
Stop it.
Shit, man, you just threw away a big
Oh,
friend.
fuck.
Oh shit, dude.
All right, 2
Oh.
out of 3. 2 out of 3. The fate of philosophy requires a 2 out of 3.
Okay.
Oh my god. I was in so many bad spots that
Oh
game.
my god.
I don't know how we pulled that one out, boys. That was
I really don't like this. This makes me really
impossible to
uncomfortable.
believe. Oh my goodness.
I don't
If it'll
know.
make Rem feel better, I'll have to
Just
do one.
fucking. No, I'm done. I resign. I have not played chess in years. Actually, no, that's not. I've played it on my server before. Have you ever played 2v2 chess though?
No.
You've never played 2v2 chess? wait.
Nope. Okay. Can I go now? I'm done being an anti-realist.
yes,
I want to
that's
walk
fair
into the sunset and go buy some ice cream.
Well, I'll talk to Neck. And
No, I want him there when we talk because you're gonna describe my views in the most uncharitable way possible.
no. I'm gonna link him the little clip of our predictions.
Oh, okay.
I'll link it in the clip. And
I'm just happy as long as we all agree that Rawls is the true way.
I mean, he
I
seems like
don't
a
know.
cool dude.
Look, I'm exhausted. I've been up for an inordinate amount of time. I'm super fucking tired. I feel like I've said a lot of positions here that I don't hold. I feel like I'm losing my mind and I should just cuddle up and read some Thomas Kuhn. And I'm sorry for yelling so much, but I
I think you should apologize to the last person that was in here because
I don't know. I don't know if I want to apologize to someone who says that morally killing Jews and eating meat are on the same level. I don't feel comfortable apologizing to someone for that. I very much stand by my view that we should attack those people who hold those views and that we should attack epistemic anti-realism. I stand by that view, and we won't go into that now, but I very much stand by that statement. Can I show myself out a little bit?
Knock yourself out, buddy.
All right, this is my Twitter. I've decided. Where's my Twitter? My Twitter is Rem the Bath Boy, and I'm gonna start doing some real cool stuff on there. I'm gonna give some really like hot takes, and stuff on there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not logged in. Uh-oh. Wait, I'm doing the the D.GG one. So there's that one. Here's my YouTube channel which features my takedown of Ask Yourself.
Thank God.
Did you ever watch that video, Destiny?
No. I watched some of it, but not the whole thing.
That does. Okay. So there's that. And then finally, and most importantly, my Discord server, where if you have issues with anything I've said today, you can come in here so that I can ignore you and the rest of my members can talk to you because I'm going to bed. There it is. This is the link. Join this server, say some stuff, and we'll let you in. And hopefully we can talk again soon, Destiny. I might take a little break.
I love you.
Well, I'll see what next says. Yeah, I love you too. I love you too.
Just keep
Okay.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yep,
And it was
definitely.
nice talking to you too, Magna, Miriam. I'd like to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, wow. Good job for getting him a name. All right. Nice
All
talking
right.
to everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks a
Bye,
lot,
chat. Love
Magna
you.
Miriam, for
Have a good
joining us. Have a good one, buddy.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Yeah. you too.
Bye.
Ugh. Fuck. Okay. Man.
the ships who are following us can just kind of track us, and then we can get picked up in a bit and go somewhere else. Yeah, if you guys... Now that fidelity right there. Just keep the if the Connie's about, just see if... Yeah, if you guys... Now that...
Oh, Star Citizen. The game that's definitely going to release soon, guys.